record.
Everybody's good? You're good? You're good. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We'll go ahead and start with what we're required to read here. The notice of the July 26, 2018 meeting of the Board of Examiners for Land Surveyors was posted to the Board of Examiners for Land Surveyors website on July 19th, 2018. Okay, with that being said, we'll certainly get things underway. We do have quite a few items on the agenda, and I'm very enthusiastic to report we have quite a few members visiting with us today who I think would like an opportunity to speak to us. We encourage them. We are glad you are here. And for those that are watching or listening by other means, we certainly encourage you to attend as well. This is a public meeting. It's open to the public. And we want anyone and everyone who has questions of us to feel free to come and approach us at any time. So certainly glad that everyone in attendance here is here this morning. I do want to extend a big thank you to staff. Outstanding job again. We've got the agenda. We've got all the materials we needed. Big thank you to Jamie with all the work that she does behind the scenes. And Roxanne, everyone that works with you too. Another outstanding job. You guys pull it together every time. Let's see. Officially call to order the meeting. It is 9 o'clock. I do want to approve or accept and adopt the agenda here. I do ask for a little bit of leniency on the agenda, as I do most times. Things do tend to shuffle around. There is one item I would like to move on the agenda, and that would be the appearing before the board. We have two gentlemen that are listed. I think we're going to have quite a few more. I would like to move that ahead of the legal report, if that's okay. I know it's going to depend on your time schedule. That's why I wanted to ask first.
And that's the issue, generally speaking. They've got, you sure? Okay. Generally, they've got commitments because they all carry other boards and things to do. And I don't think the legal report is that long.
I think we've got 9 items on there.
11, I believe.
Is it 11? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So are we okay to move it, or do we need to leave legal first?
As long as I can be out here by 11:30, we're cool.
I'd be out by 11:30.
The only thing to keep in mind is that we're charged for legal's time. So if they're here, that's fine. It's not the end of the world. I just want the board always to be conscious of kind
Are
of
you
why we
comfortable
put
with
them
me moving?
first.
I just want to give these gentlemen here their time. They've
absolutely.
got obviously things to do today, and I don't want to get them on their way. So as long as Roxanne is comfortable, legal is comfortable, we'll go ahead and move that the appearing before the board ahead of the legal report. The other items ahead of the appearances are pretty quick. I think we can get through that pretty quick. So with that, I would like a motion to adopt the agenda as written and modified.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Further discussion? All right, hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. With that being said, I failed to mention that Jed is not going to be able to attend today. Jed, our public member, fairly new, but I believe just had a baby.
Second baby came a little bit early.
Boy?
I didn't get the details,
Okay.
so he was just
Mr.
wanting
Chairman,
to.
I hope that his wife had the baby.
I was thinking the same thing.
Well, yes, absolutely, and I'm
But
sure
we
he
do
is.
have quorum without him, so that is great.
I would like to state that he is in the right place. So.
Yes.
We will miss him, but certainly thoughts and prayers for he and his newborn baby and the wife. I hope all are doing well. So congratulations to he and his family. Okay. With that being said, we're going to move on to the minutes from the April 12th, 18. I think all the members here have had a copy. I hope you've had an opportunity to review those minutes. And if not, we'll take a little bit of time. When you're comfortable with it, I'll accept a motion on those minutes.
Motion that we accept the minutes.
Second.
All right, motion and a second to accept the minutes from the April 12th, 2018 as printed. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so the minutes from April 12th are approved and accepted. Okay, with that, we'll move on to the education report. Again, another item that the members here have been provided with. There are some seminars looking for approval. I think we've got 2 applicants here. One is the Kerr seminars. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. The second one being from CAPS, the Kentucky Association of Professional Surveyors. Numerous items on there. If there's any selected items you'd like to pull out, take consideration of that now. Otherwise, if in approval of all, I'll accept a motion for approval or denial.
Just checking my notes, make sure I didn't have anything. Here, I make a motion that we approve them as submitted.
All right, I've got a motion for approval as submitted. Is there a second?
Second.
Second made. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, with that, the education report is approved. Any further items on the education report?
That is it. I think your first appearing before the board that's on the agenda is on page 29, if we want to skip to him.
Thank you.
Tap at the bottom to get straight to that page.
All right, I believe that is Mr. McCarty, is that correct? Mr. John McCarty? Yes.
Correct, yes.
All right, we do have a request by Mr. John McCarty to waive the exam and his reapplication attempt. Mr. McCarty, are you present?
Yes, sir.
Hey, if you would step forward to the podium, please state your name and address just for the record.
John McCarty, 198 Progress Road, Collierville, Tennessee.
John, I want to welcome you to the meeting today.
Thank you.
I understand you're trying to reobtain your license, and then it lapsed at one time. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right.
It lapsed due to my lack of attention to make the payment. I was under the assumption that I was still current and submitting PDHs and everything else, and missed that, and contacted the staff in 2017 when I realized it, and they had me fill out a form and send it all in, and then that sat stagnant till this year, where I contacted them back, and they said that I would have to just go back through the complete reapplication process or come speak to the board. So,
Right.
The thing I do want to add is that in 2017, it was already actually a little late because you've got the 1-year grace period to renew. So I believe we've addressed a couple similar to this a few meetings ago, that they really thought everything was current. The board reviewed everything, took into account their intent. And so we did waive the exam on those two, but we did also open complaints if the individuals were working. That's kind of how the board addressed the previous ones.
A couple questions for you, John, just real quick. Is it correct that you're a dual licensee? Is that right?
yes, sir. I'm a civil engineer by main profession, but also carry the land surveyor's license.
Okay, very good. Is in your civil engineering license, is it current,
Yes, sir.
up to date?
Yes.
And is it a biannual renewal as well?
It is.
Okay, so just kind of following along with that pattern, I know that you worked extremely hard to gain both of those licenses, obviously, and there's some maintenance involved. Obviously, you were aware of the biannual renewal of your civil engineering license. How does the surveying license seem to fall to the side there?
I think it was a twofold issue. One of them is when I started my engineering company, and I left a company that was handling my renewals for both, and then two would be the state system where you go online and pay. Somehow or another, two different accounts were set up for me, and so when I logged in, I would pay whatever I owed on the civil engineering, but apparently there was a land surveying one that I didn't know I was linked to or needed to go pay separate of it. So with it not showing up somehow or another, that's how I missed it.
Over the years that the license has been expired, I guess that's since 2016, is that correct?
The online piece,
Yes.
we rolled to the new system late 2015, but online we've been able to renew since 2016 for this profession.
Okay, so during those times, obviously there's still an annual PDH requirement for your surveying license.
Sure.
Have you been able to keep that up to date?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I think I saw some submittals here that showed that you had indeed kept those
Sure.
PDHs. Most of those were gained through the TAPS conferences, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Okay, the standard pathway to regaining your license is to take the state-specific exam again. However, there is a provision that allows the board here to waive that exam. Is that what you're asking for today?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, do you all have any questions? Quick, has in the time that your license has been expired here in this window of time, are you aware that you've performed or stamped or offered services of surveying during that window?
No, sir. With my practice, we don't have surveying in-house, and we rely on three surveying companies to meet all our civil engineering surveying needs.
Okay, so just to clarify, during that expired window that we're talking about here,
Yes, sir.
you did not personally advertise or accept or stamp any surveys?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good.
I would like to ask a question. I apologize. I'm working on about three things at once, so I apologize. I did not clearly hear everything that Mr. Kaufman asked you, so I do want to clarify a point.
Sure.
Your license technically expired December 31, 2015. Did I say that correct?
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
Okay. July of 2018.
Yes, sir. I realized it had expired in 2017. Definitely one of the third compounding issues is when the survey renewal went from 1 year to 2 year. Somehow or another convinced myself that I was in my off year 2 years in a row as well. But as soon as I realized that it was deficient is when I contacted the board. It was Cody that I spoke with. It was after Don had left. And spoke with Cody and worked through getting some paperwork he thought was the appropriate paperwork to send in, and I submitted it. And then it sat stagnant, and I made a couple contacts to the board.
When was that paperwork submitted?
November 2017.
Okay, November.
Yes, yes.
Ms. Roxanne, if I may, I ask you a question. Our new system of being able to pay online, apparently in the spirit of what he has indicated to us, there is not a situation to where if you are multi-licensed that you end up with one account, you end up with multiple accounts.
Yes and no. So
Okay.
we don't want to merge your entities. We don't want to decide that you, as Tim Lingerfeld, are the same Tim Lingerfeld that also holds a civil engineering license. So when you go online to renew, you actually can make them one.
Okay.
You have within yourself, and we have several now. I've got real estate agents that are also appraisers. They merge those entities themselves. And so we do leave it up to the public to decide, hey, that is me. It's one and the same, because it will find you when you look. So once
Okay.
he renews the next time or does something online with his land surveyor, it's going to realize, oh, you also had this, and he'll be able to. That will help him better manage these. They won't be due at the same time, right, because they're different licenses, but at least the management.
Does the website that you're directed to for the payment of these fees, does it allude to this scenario that you just described?
It does say pull in any of your licenses, and so
Okay.
he would be pulling in 2, 3, however many he has.
Well, I think that would be a good facts
It's a good-
thing for our website because, and also the engineer architect's website, because we do have a significant amount of duals, just like the gentleman that's speaking to us today. And that would be positive. As in any technology, there's always a transition, and I understand.
That's a very good point. At the very beginning, we saw few people do it. It wasn't perfect, but now we're seeing more and more. And on our side, so we get to see everything. We'll always see his engineering things he submits and his land surveyor and whatever else he.
We'll
put something out there.
Actually, as long as I've been on this board, I have never known our dual number for engineers and surveyors. And that's a common question that we get asked, for example, at NCWS. We don't know the answer to it. That's statistics that they keep as well. So that would be good to know that, but that's a sidetrack, obviously. But I did want to leave in our public meeting here an understanding of anybody that's watching this or in the room that there is a possibility of paying multiple licenses under your account.
Correct, it's there, and we will try to put something else that kind of points you in that direction, but doesn't confuse folks, right? Because it may get some folks confused.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Questions?
No, I mean, this is the same situation as we had last meeting, right?
Very similar.
Very similar.
Yeah, very similar. Yeah. All right, I think we've had an opportunity to review the situation here. Certainly, I hope we've answered Mr. McCarty's questions, and we've had an opportunity to ask a few. With that in mind, what is the will of the board toward his request for waiving the examination?
I move that we waive the exam.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion on that? All right, hearing none, the motion was for not include fees or anything like that. It's just strictly waiving of the exam itself. All right. All right. With that in mind, all those in favor of approving the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. With that, the motion is passed.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you coming out today. Thank you.
If you need anything, because I've got the annual.
Hey.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Are we ready to move on to the next one?
We are. The next person that I've got on the agenda up here before the board is Mr. Matt Souter. He's on starting with page 48 on your iPads.
Thank you. Mr. Souter, are you present? Yes. Hey, welcome. Would you step forward, please? State your name and address for the record.
My name is Matt Souter. My address is 3031 Cemetery Road in Trenton, Kentucky.
Welcome, Matt. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
I understand that you are here today to discuss your application for the PLS licensure. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you want to just kind of give us a brief overview?
Sure. I'm also licensed as a civil engineer and a land surveyor in Kentucky, not Tennessee, civil in both states. I completed my degree at the University of Kentucky in 2008.
What degree was that?
The Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering.
Civil engineering degree?
Yes.
From Kentucky?
University of Kentucky, yes.
Okay,
good. And the 12-hour, I only received 12 hours of surveying core curriculum at that university based on Kentucky standards. I'm not sure if Tennessee even recognizes those 12 or not. So in applying for my licensure, I probably should have come and asked this question before I sent in my first application. But I don't really fit a checklist spot as far as my bachelor's degree does not have 24 hours of approved surveying courses. I have more than an associate's degree, but also don't have the 36 hours that they require. But I feel more qualified than the high school diploma that requires the 10 years. So I guess what I'm looking for is maybe advice on how to proceed. Would you recommend? I live and work in Clarksville. My father is a land surveyor in Tennessee, and he's ready to retire. So if I need to work the extra 6 years to gain my high school plus 10 and apply under that requirement, then I guess he and I would need to go ahead and work something out. So whether or not I'm going to move my business to Kentucky or whatever. So
Okay.
And I know that my first application was declined, and understandably so.
Okay, so obviously I think if I recall correctly on your application that I reviewed, I think you had applied under the 4-year degree rule, but it was not under the survey engineering degree, but rather a civil engineering degree, which you've obtained from Kentucky, which, if I recall correctly, requires 24 hours of specific surveying courses as approved by the board. And if I remember in my review of your transcripts, I had difficulty finding those 24 hours that were contained within your civil engineering degree curriculum. And so with that, I believe I denied the application stated on that. I believe that's correct. I hope I'm right. And so my thought process behind that was, obviously, I would suggest that you go back and obtain courses to total those additional 24 hours, reapply, and then hopefully get approved and take the examination that way. But there are other alternatives. You did mention you have an associate's degree, which will require the additional 36 hours. Did I understand that correctly? That you had this?
I just have a bachelor's.
He has a
excuse me.
bachelor's.
You referred to it. You were just referring to it.
Right.
Okay.
Using that as an option.
And then, yes, there is a high school diploma pathway with the 10 years of experience based on the date of taking the fundamentals of surveying exam, which do you recall the date of that?
2008. December
Okay, so you're well ahead of that. So, yeah, so a 10-year of experience would get you in that. Approximately, do you recall how many years of active surveying practice that you have already?
Well, that's
Full time.
I only have 4 that are actually counted because
Okay.
I had to park several of those years where I was actually doing surveying because in order to obtain my civil
Absolutely.
licensure. So,
Yep.
But I guess I've been working in summer since I was 16, but I understand that that's not always accountable.
So it sounds to me like you have a pretty good grasp on the pathway. There's 2 main pathways I think that you're keen on and that I think is probably the right ways to go about it. Either obtain the additional 24 hours of coursework or obtain the additional approximately 6 years of experience that way. Either one is quite a bit of work.
I don't think you would have to, I think he's got some courses that would qualify for the 24, so you wouldn't be obtaining 24 more hours. It would be
Total
X
of 24,
number.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and so I think when reviewing your transcripts, there were some courses in there that certainly did qualify towards those 24, which would obviously lessen the total number of hours that we'd be asking you to obtain in addition to what you have already. I don't have that number offhand. We could certainly provide that for you. I think that may be the quickest way
That would be, I guess, a big help, and what would be the most beneficial for me from this meeting, I guess, is
Absolutely.
to maybe have an email that summarized exactly what courses that you would consider as surveying,
Okay.
and what I guess need to build off of from there. And
Okay.
also, knowing that I'm in and around the Clarksville area, it may not hurt to have a list of, maybe say, if I don't know if Austin P has any courses in there, or if there are online courses I could take, or maybe a recommendation is,
Certainly.
knowing that I'm still working full-time.
Absolutely.
Could I interrupt?
Yes, ma'am.
You've got on your iPads 50 pages of his application. Nothing about the coursework is on there? I'm just wondering if there's any way, it is? If we can guide him today on how many credits you think he needs, that might help him so we don't have to.
Okay, yeah, I certainly think we could do that. I would probably ask for a break at some time today so we could sit down and kind of study them, as
Perfect.
opposed to just sit here and watch us study
Okay.
the transcripts. But you're certainly more than welcome to stay with us today and allow us that opportunity. Or if you've got things to do, we'll certainly be back in correspondence with you, either by telephone or by mail or something like that, with a breakdown of what you may still be needing.
Okay,
In
yeah.
terms of hours, that's strictly up to you.
I got a question here. When you made application here, were you licensed in Kentucky already?
No, I got my license between the time that I applied and was denied. So I basically applied for both of them at the
Does it
same
provide
time.
for another avenue?
No, still has to qualify.
So-
Yeah, got to meet that qualification. Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Souter, I want to address a couple things. You made a statement that, that it was, I guess, I'm not going to paraphrase your words, but it was negative being considered on the high school route, you being a graduate civil engineer and licensed surveyor. I would like to counter that a little bit with, first off, I think that we are not viewing you, or at least I'm not viewing you or your application as anything less than who you are and what your credentials are, okay? What this board, I think, is trying to do is trying to provide the most appropriate avenue for you to get your licensure in the fastest possible manner. I think that's what we're trying to do for you. I want to clarify that I did see a thing in one of the emails that you were sent that said that the undergraduate coursework didn't count towards the surveying courses. It certainly does. And I realize that you and the others have seen that I've been distracted this morning for the first little while. My whole mission in my distraction has been reviewing your transcript. And we do have a little bit of an unusual scenario of how we review surveying courses for an applicant. They're on sort of a tiered or a category system, and there's purpose behind that. Because if we didn't do that and we just simply had a list of courses, then sort of everybody could qualify. And that's not necessarily what we want. We want good folks to qualify and qualify with the appropriate education along with their experience. So just so that you have a grasp, in my quick review, and as the chair said, we will review this for you and give you further details. I actually found 33 hours in your undergraduate that would qualify. However, now the problem with it is, as Mr. Kaufman has duly indicated, is that the way we categorize these hours, each category has a different quantity of hours that you need to meet in order to be able to qualify under our statute the way it's written. So that's where you fall short. You fall short in what we call Category 1 courses. So, in my opinion, and again, we'll go over that, but I just wanted to say those things to you. As Mr. Chair said here, we do appreciate you being here. We are interested in assisting you to become licensed, and that's what we're going to try to do here, and try to honor your request of getting you as much possible information as we can.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Souter, thank you again for coming down here. It shows your genuine interest and passion in the profession. It's our desire to get you licensed as quickly as we can, as it is with all candidates. But it certainly shows that you're willing to take that extra step to come down and visit with us, explain your situation, and rightfully so, ask for an answer. And you deserve one, and we'll get you one, okay?
Thank you very much.
Like I said, you're more than invited to stay with us all day if you like. At some point during the day, we will take a break. We'll convene together, break those courses down by Category 1, 2, and 3, and we'll get you an answer Like I said, if you want to stay here and wait for it, that's fine. Otherwise, we'll be back in correspondence by letter.
Thank you very much. I
All right.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, I think those were the two items that were provided to me on the agenda as gentlemen who wanted to appear before us had made prior notice. We do have some other gentlemen in the audience today who I think would like to speak with us. I think Mr. Rogers, do I have that name right, correct? Roberts, excuse me, pardon me. Mr. Roberts, I know you were first in this morning. If you'd like to step forward, are we... That's certainly your prerogative, sir. All right. If we have another gentleman who'd like to step forward, you're certainly welcome to. I would ask that you state your name and address for the record when you step up, please. And got any questions? Now would be the time.
My name is Kenneth Leg. I live at 2597 Greens Mill Road in Columbia, Tennessee, and I'm in the same boat that Mr. McCarty was in, except it's a little bit different. This is Ed Adams. He had his own survey company up until January the 1st of this year, and he always kind of took care of the renewals for himself and for him and myself, and through just a lapse, I guess, then when the renewals came up in 2015, 17 years, it just failed to get done.
I can relate to that more and more.
I heard the guy a while ago say this. It kind of threw me off when we went to the 2-year renewal. In the process, I just didn't get to it.
Okay, so if I understand, Mr. Adams, the question here isn't on your license, it's rather it's on Mr.
It's on Ken's, yes, sir, but it was my responsibility to renew his license.
Okay, ultimately it's his. But I understand what you're saying. I don't mean any disrespect to that. Mr. Legg, so your license currently stands in what status right now? It's expired.
Inactive, that's the word, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Now, Ken has been to the TAP seminars every year. He's got his continuing education. Ken hasn't stamped any plats, nor does he stamp plats. I stamp all the plats.
Certainly.
And he hadn't advertised as doing surveys, so.
A couple of things I may ask you to do here. I don't know that we're going to come with a decision right here, right now, because we just don't have all the information, Mr. Legg. What I would ask you to do, though, is probably through Jamie or through the board, submit proof of all the PDHs for those, during those years that your license had been expired. And then obviously there are some fees associated with the, the reapplication of getting your license current.
We have filled out all the application stuff, and we sent in $300 in fees.
Okay, so I'm assuming that staff-wise we have all the paperwork and fees. I just don't know. It just kind of caught me offhand here. I don't know. But I do want to make sure that we do have all those check marks, checked before we make a decision on this.
I sent in all the PDHs because I think I'd done that myself. It was just when it got time to write the check that Ed wrote the check.
Yeah, I'm not questioning you. I just don't know myself. That's all. That's just all there is to it. I need some reassurance is all I need from staff, and we'll get there. So like I said, I don't know that we'll make a decision right here, right now, just because I didn't know you were coming. I wasn't prepared for the information to come right at me. But obviously, if we can do this today, we'll try to do the best we can. So I understand that you're requesting a waiver for the testing. Okay, and then trying to get your license up and current, similar to the last couple. Okay. Anything else further you want to add to that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, and then just to reassure what I think Mr. Adams had said, during that time that your license has been expired, you have not offered surveying services yourself personally as a professional surveyor, nor conducted or stamped any surveys. Okay. Any questions?
Well, now I have, but I've done it through Ed.
Right.
So,
Right.
Through your employer.
Right.
Okay.
You haven't stamped anything.
I haven't stamped anything.
Okay, that's what I'm after. Is
Yeah,
your stamp.
that's the primary
I haven't
one.
used my stamp for anything.
And I want to clarify one thing the gentleman said. By statute, the last 20 years, the renewal has been December 31st of every odd year by statute. So that's been for 20 years. It just didn't happen yesterday.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it's something.
No, sir. I want to clarify that. That statute has been in place for. It's actually been longer than that, but for the last 20 years, by statute right here, TCA, it's there.
What
So
I
I'll
think
clarify that
What I
with
think
you.
Mr. Adams is probably alluding to
Yeah.
is similar to myself. Come December, you're always trying to get the collective PDHs together to submit annually, and it just kind of, to me, it kind of combines to one to your licensure, even though it is a biannual license. But I think I understand what you're saying. But just for clarification,
Yeah.
stickler of the rules.
PH is in every year, right?
Every year. Yeah. Well, now we
Well,
don't.
no,
Now we
have
don't,
a
but we
scenario
did. Now we don't.
That's correct.
But
Now
do.
we do not. You're responsible for holding on to your PDHs, and when you renew, you submit them electronically with the renewal. That way, it's all right there and really clear to you what's happening. Yeah, yeah. Now, what we can do, if it's okay with the board, and Jamie has a chance to find it, I have no problem while we're doing the legal report, if Jamie has a minute, just to look and see if the application was submitted in the PDHs, hopefully in that hour or so that we've got, she can pull it, see what we have, just so if the board can make a decision today, we go for it. If not, it would be delayed.
Okay, like I said with the last gentleman, you're more than welcome to hang out for a while. In the meantime, I am going to ask staff to kind of collect the paperwork that we need just to verify a few things. And if we get the time today collectively to make a decision, we'd be glad to let you know if you want to hang around, or you can, if you got things to do today, we can make contact with you that way. It's
What time do you all finish up, and we might can run back by over here toward the end of the day?
It varies today. I would guess today typically around 1 or 2 o'clock would be my guess. It's just, we got a lot of items on the agenda, so
Okay, we'll check back.
that's fine. You can certainly do that, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions for us? Any other questions? Okay, just want to make sure we handled everything you need. Okay, we'll do what we can for you today, okay? Appreciate you coming out. Okay, I think we have another gentleman. If you'd like to step forward, please state your name and address for the record.
Philip Dwayne Bice, 7337 Valley Lane, Hickson, Tennessee. I spoke with James. I found out a year ago, February, from a fellow surveyor friend of mine, David Matthews in Chattanooga, said, Phil, I'm calling you for 2 reasons. He said, one, I couldn't read the name on the cap, but I got your license number. And he looked me up. He said, I need a copy of the survey, but did you know you're inactive? And I said, what? I'm hanging up right now and calling up here. Of course, I call and hold and hold and hold. Finally, I get to talk to a lady. She said, well, you need to talk to, I thought his name was Toby, but
Cody.
James says Cody.
Cody.
Okay. I said, what do I need to do to get reactivated? He says, hang on, let me look it up. Send me $280 and your PDHs. So I send PDHs in every year, and if I lapsed on the 280, I don't know. This is to get reactivated. This is a year ago, February. So I find out last month. I get a call from an attorney who's a friend of mine. I do work for and everything. He said, "Phil, do you know your license is expired?" No, I will talk to you later. So I'm calling back up here. I can't get a hold of anybody. I call Lori Medley at TAPS. Lori says, hang on, I'll try and find the email address. And she emails Jamie. Jamie emails me and wants me to tell her, what the situation is. So I told her I go immediately to the bank, get a cashier's check, paperclip it to my hours again, put it in the mail, and send it up here. Then my license expired. And I called and talked to Jamie. She said, well, yeah, we've got your money, but we don't have your hours. The check was paperclipped to the hours. I brought them up here again.
I understand.
I'm just trying to get reinstated.
I understand.
That's the story.
All right, so similar story to what we've had going on here before. It does sound to me, though, although I'll ask the question directly, have you been performing surveys?
Not since I found out I was expired.
Not since you found out you were expired, but how about since your license has been expired?
Sorry, what was that?
How about since the license itself has
Oh,
been
no,
expired?
since I found out last month
No, that's
I
not
was
what I'm asking.
expired.
That's not what I'm asking.
No.
I'm asking, at the date that the license was officially expired,
I don't know when they officially expired.
that would have been
I'm guessing 2015 as well? Does that
December
sound right?
31st?
If it was Cody, then yes.
Okay, so it would have been, okay, so December 31st of 2015.
Correct.
All right, so basically, from that date, December 31st of 2015, okay, that's when the license, whether you knew it or not, that's when the license became expired.
Yes, I have stamped them.
Okay, all right. Do you have an
But
idea-
they're saying because they didn't get my PDHs. I send them every year.
I understand.
I know, yeah, I mean,
I
but
understand. All right, but the
This
fact
is
that-
my situation, my point. You understand what
I
I'm saying?
do. I understand where you're coming from. I just want to make sure that you clarify where we understand.
I understand.
There is a date to which that license becomes expired. And that date was, I guess, midnight, December 31st of 2015. And as of from that date to, I guess, present, the license technically is expired.
When I spoke with Cody a year ago, February,
Right.
it was inactive, not expired.
Okay.
That's why I said send $280 and the hours again, which I did.
Either way,
And
the license is not active. Technically, is not active. Whether you
right
want to
now,
say inactive.
I went from inactive instead of being activated when I
Right.
sent the money and the hours. Now I'm expired.
Okay. All right.
So we would need to know the date that it became expired.
That would have been an incorrect statement from Cody
It would have been, yeah.
Correct.
in February of
Inactive
17,
means-
because 16 would have been his window of opportunity.
Correct. And inactive means someone actually asks us to place their license on
Right.
inactive status.
Right.
The board office cannot do that.
Right.
So if he had sent a letter asking to go inactive, that would have happened. Otherwise, it was actually moving them from that in grace period of
Right, the 1-year
expired
grace.
to active.
Right.
So yes, if it's expired, it never got completed all the way through, and a license didn't get mailed out to you and so forth.
And obviously, I'm taking this under the assumption that you never had received any kind of notification from the board that, hey, your license is expired.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Or non-active, either.
Either one, okay.
No,
You
you,
won't.
you,
know-
as the registrant, have to declare inactivity.
Yeah. In
Oh, I never
inactive-
declared that.
That's what I'm saying.
I know.
You have to
What he's-
submit in order to be inactive,
The-
as
Okay.
the registrant. The board, the staff, no one can do that except you.
Right, so your
When
license
Cody-
has never been inactive.
Right. When Cody made that statement, it was an incorrect statement.
Oh,
You were
okay.
probably at that point, in our system, it says expired grace.
So inactive really doesn't mean anything.
It does.
It does.
It does.
But you have to request it.
Oh, I
Right.
never requested
Right.
that.
And if you're working, you would not ask for an inactive
No. Right.
license.
But
And-
it's like, excuse me, David, when he pulls it up on the computer, it says, Philip Dwayne Bice inactive in the computer, not expired.
Right now? Right now, that's what it's.
No, right now it's expired.
Yeah, I don't
But
know
a
that
year
it
ago,
ever-
February, it said
Inactive,
inactive.
yeah. That sounds incorrect unless you had requested that, and that just sounds like.
I never
that's what it sounds
requested
like.
to be inactive.
I understand that, I understand. Okay, all right, but it sounds like you brought your PDHs with you, copies
sir.
of it. And
All the way
it
back to
sounds
14.
like
I got 14, 15,
administratively,
16, and now 17.
that's what we need to see. And it sounds like that you've made the payments that have been requested of you to get you.
You've got my
today.
money.
We've got your money. We've got
But
your
I don't
money.
know why they were not put in the system.
I understand,
hours.
I understand. It's an administrative
And
issue.
I brought these copies to leave with,
I
personally
appreciate
with
that.
you
I understand
guys.
that. I understand that. Again, what I'm going to say to you again is, again, this has kind of hit us without notice ahead of time to do my homework. But I would ask from you to allow us as a board to convene
I
and
understand.
review your PDHs.
And I
review
may now
payments.
owe more fees
and they'll go that way.
from when I paid, last year. I probably owe fees again this year, or if I'm out of that window.
Right.
But I guess, Jamie, could you let me know about owing more fees?
We'll certainly let
want
you
me to
know
leave
that.
You may leave these with
I
someone?
would.
Jamie.
Yeah, leave those here. Put them in the hands. We see it. And again, allow us some time today to convene, and if we can come up with a resolution for you today, we'll do that.
If you don't mind, put my phone number on there, please. And just give me a call.
Mr. Vice, here's my number.
Thank you. Thank you.
And obviously-
423-802-147.
Good, and if we can come up with a resolution for you today, we'll certainly indicate so and let you know. Just like the other gentleman in the same boat, you're more than welcome to stay with us today if you like. Otherwise, we'll be back in touch with you as soon as
Well,
we can
since
come
I
up with a
can't stamp
resolution.
any surveys right now,
I understand. I understand.
I appreciate your patience and your time.
Certainly. We'll certainly get this resolved for you. I apologize for any administrative errors on our part, but we'll get that resolved and we'll get it fixed and we'll get a resolution for you.
I don't like going to these seminars, spending 2 days sitting on my back.
I understand.
You gentlemen know where I'm coming from.
I understand what you're saying. Any other questions
No, sir.
for us as a board? Okay.
Do you have any for me?
I think I'm good. Jackie, Tim, any questions? Okay. All right. Again, if you just allow us some time, we'll get to it. Good. Thank you. Appreciate you coming out. Okay, Mr. Roberts, did I get that right this time? I hope so. I apologize for my error before. You're more than welcome to step forward, and I would ask you to state your name and address for the record first, and then See what we can do to help you out here.
Roberts, 68 Philadelphia Drive in Morrison, Tennessee.
Roberts, I appreciate you being here and especially your patience. You're very, very patient man there. How can we help you today?
I'm information seeking. I've talked to all three of you individually, and I think listening to the other people in front of me, I've got a lot of the answers that I've come for, I think. I was encouraged over the last more than 10 years by surveyors I worked with to go ahead to do the program, to go get my license. Yes, I took it to heart a little bit several years ago. I'll try it, maybe get something to retire into from what I'm doing. Now, about me, full-time EMS. I'm a paramedic with Williamson EMS. Been in EMS 7, so that's my full-time job. I've been working part-time with surveyors since 07. Still work part-time with a surveyor, Elkins in Murfreesboro. Some of the work that doesn't need a surveyor, somebody may ask me to stake a house. But everything that requires a surveyor, I do through him. And people will ask me sometimes, well, can you do this and that? Well, no, you got to see. So he also encouraged me. Some others I've got to know has encouraged me. Then the last person I talked to with the state was Donna, and that was just before she left. And I was working on the best information that I could, and she still said about the 10-year program. Okay, well, some people were going around the buzz last year that some resolutions were changing that would affect how I would have to do, but everybody thought it would take effect in November. Okay, I've got a little time. Worked toward it. I bought the study material, worked on that for the last year and a half. My wife got sick, and I had to almost stop doing everything to take care of her for about 6 months. So ultimately, what I've told all three of you, time has been against me. So then I went time limit for my FS, and I wasn't aware that I could take the FS at any time. Nobody told me that before. So really, I'm kind of at a, and I know the rule. Legal over here knows the rules, and I'm pretty sure I know how legal advise you on it is you can't break the rules for somebody. You can't do that. So the information that I was looking for, I found.
Good.
So I don't know what you can do to help outside those rules, but I can't wait another 6 years. I would be 7.
Right, I understand. You know, you made one statement that did catch my attention. I do want to reiterate for those that are listening, on the FS exam, yes, you can take that at any time. At any time, and I certainly encourage you to do so. That certainly is a step towards your goal, obviously. There is one thing I would like to caution you on, and maybe I misunderstood something you said, but I do want to clarify, was on the 10 years of experience. I think you mentioned that you had in that 10-year window since, I think you said 2007, that you had been working through another surveyor on a part-time basis.
That's what I was going to ask. If I understand, does that mean I have to work full-time for a surveyor?
It does.
See,
it does. That 10-year rule is of full-time employment as a surveyor, working under a licensed surveyor. Working part-time does not necessarily qualify you that way. So I would caution you on that.
Yeah.
That was the other I was going to ask.
In a year's time, if you totaled all your experience and it was 2 months, or I'm just making an example.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Then that's all you can. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all would apply toward your 10 years.
Yeah. Well,
Each year.
So when we're looking for experience, we're looking for full-time experience, not as a part-time. And I think that makes sense. I think you can understand.
Oh, it does. The amount of hours I work, I don't know how to add them all up. I can look back at my log books, and I do anywhere from 30 to 60 hours a week with them like that. So it's not like one day a month or anything like that regular. So I think I've found what I've looked for.
Okay.
So
Okay.
even taking the FS, I probably wouldn't even qualified to take the FS, more than likely. So that's kind of where I am. I've been listening. The old saying is you got 2 eyes and 2 ears and 1 mouth. You look and listen twice as much as you talk.
It's good advice.
So I appreciate your time.
Yep.
All right.
I hope we've answered the questions you have. If any other questions that come up today, feel free to contact us or through the board any way you feel fit.
Yeah, it's coming to the people who know instead of listening around.
Certainly.
All right. I appreciate it.
Okay. Well, I certainly appreciate you coming out.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Roxanne, I'm going to ask for a 10-minute break here. Is that okay?
Absolutely,
Good
yes.
time for that? Great,
Yes,
thank
we
you.
do.
And when we get back, we'll jump into legal.
It's 10 till we'll stop.
I do, yeah. I do. I toss them so I don't confuse them with something else. Okay. I think we could be back in session here. Just to pick up where we left off, I think we're going to jump into the legal report. Are we ready for that, Roxana?
We are. It's on
Let's do
page
it.
12 of your iPads, and I will go ahead and turn it over to Ms. Robin.
My question is, gentlemen, would you like me to read each of these into the record or just the numbers?
Well, it is lengthy, but actually I am going to ask you to read them into the record.
Okay.
I apologize,
That's
but
all
I think it's probably the best course of action.
That's fine.
May I ask a question about that, out of curiosity?
We can also summarize if you prefer that.
That would be good.
Yeah.
That would be good.
I would.
No, the question I have is a technological question coming from me, which I know is crazy. But is there a way that when you get to the legal report, that item, that case or whatever, the summary of it could actually be placed on the website? In other words, a picture of that page, so that in the future, the attorneys would not have to read all of that, because we already have it, and they have it, but the public doesn't have it, and we want the public to know what is of record. But if we could show it to them, then, that's just a curiosity question.
We've talked about it for other boards because, like the Real Estate Commission, they like everything to be read into the record and it's time consuming. So let us double check, but I do think it's possible that we could put them on there. The ones that go online, we may just put the summaries and not even put our recommendation or that stuff.
would be
So it's
good.
just the summaries and the number. So let us double check, but I think that we should be able to do that.
Now, this room, I don't believe, has the screen that would be visible to the public, because the screen's right over here. So I don't think they would see it. But once Sarah does the research, maybe we can put a report out there like we do the agenda that would include whatever can be, and that way they can follow along.
I was just thinking in
Yeah.
the interest of time and efficiency
Absolutely.
is all I was saying.
Yeah, no, I agree. That makes
Sorry to
sense.
interrupt you, Ms. Robin.
That's all right. Okay, 2008, I am going to read this one all in because it's easier than to summarize. Some of the others
Absolutely.
are easier. 2018-006381. The complainant in this matter hired respondent to survey a 2-acre parcel of land from other acreage. Complainant states respondent was informed that documents were needed to process the parcel separation with the city planning. Complainant states the respondent priced the job at $1,500, and after many appointments and unreturned calls, respondent provided a document and accepted the payment in full. Complainant states document did not meet city planning specification, had deficiencies. Complainant states respondent sent an email to person at planning and that the emails were not acceptable. Complainant states at the time of this complaint, respondent was not responding to calls or messages. Respondent states that the complainant requested a division of property owned by complainant's mother that respondent had previously surveyed. Respondent states that in the initial conversation, complainant did not know how many acres complainant wanted in new parcel, and respondent explained that if the new parcel was 5 or more acres, then all that was needed was a survey, but if less, then a subdivision plat was required. On a second visit to the property, employee of respondent asked complainant how much land, and complainant could not say, so employee measured off an area that complainant found satisfactory. This area was less than 5 acres, so that multiple submittals were presented to county for approval. The second submittal was approved. Respondent states $1,500 fee was for field work and first submittal, and that there was an additional $500 owed for changes requested, none of which were required under the Tennessee Standards of Practice. Respondent did provide an electronic copy as requested by planning person and notified the complainant's attorney that the final approval plat was ready and that there was a balance due. Emails to the person at planning were included wherein the revision plat was apparently acceptable. Also included was an email to Attorney dated January 12th with the balance due stated and the statement the plat had been approved. In rebuttal, complainant states respondent did not send notice about the extra money due until after this complaint was filed, and that respondent stated respondent would waive the fee if this complaint was withdrawn. The offer was declined, and complainant states respondent was notified that no negotiations concerning the fee would occur until all documents completed and rendered to planning department. Complainant states that on February 8th, respondent offered a waive fee, and that respondent never revealed a balance due of $500 between November 26th, the beginning of the project, through February 1st. This was reviewed by a reviewer who found no violation of laws or rules, no incompetence, no conflict of interest, and no misconduct. Reviewer does state that a written contract might have resolved matters prior to issue developing, but that reviewer had no recommendation, and my recommendation is to dismiss.
Okay, obviously the case did go in front of a reviewer who found the no violations or rules, and just in reading the summary myself, I also did not see any violations of rules or standards of practice on our part. Rather, it looks to me to be more of a, really just a poor communication, and as the reviewer said, a written contract might have resolved these matters. I agree with that. I think a lot of that could have been handled on the front, especially the additional amount owed or supposedly owed there. I myself personally don't see any violations, and I agree with the recommendation by staff to dismiss. What are your thoughts?
I tend to agree.
All right, I know we do have numerous items. I would ask that we handle these individually by motion on each of them as opposed to as a whole. I think would be probably a smart idea. So, Tim, unless you have questions or comments to address on this, I would entertain a motion.
I move we accept the recommendation and to dismiss.
All right, we have a motion made to dismiss. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second on case 201806381 to dismiss. Any further Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to dismiss say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so moved and accepted. On to case number 2, Ms. Robin.
2018-008271. This gentleman, not unlike the gentleman that appeared earlier, had an elapsed or expired license. So a complaint was opened internally to determine the extent of unlicensed activity during the period of expiration. Exams were waived for the reapplication of licensee for a respondent. An investigation revealed that respondent, who's been licensed since 1994, did approximately 283 surveys from January 15th to January 2018. In the investigation, respondent did not receive any notification of the expired license. Respondent further stated that once learning license had expired, respondent immediately ceased all activity. Investigators states that respondent was responsive and cooperative. Respondent's license registration expired at the end of 2015 and was in renewal period until the end of 2016. TCA 6218-114 provides that board shall notify each person registered of the date of expiration and amount of renewal fee 60 days in advance of that date. Respondent states respondent was not notified, and CORE, this is the recording for us, internal, shows the last update was in January 2014, so it cannot be determined if the notification was sent. In this case, respondent has no complaint in history, so my recommendation is simply a letter of warning about expiration, even though it is responsibility to be notified. You as an individual have a responsibility as well.
Okay. You're right, Ms. Robin. We're seeing more and more of these cases, obviously, by the gentleman that appeared before us earlier this morning. This case here, I think we may have 1 or 2 additional cases similar to that pending. But again, this is the example of the expired license. However, this respondent here, based on the investigation by the board, was conducting actively participating in conducting surveys. A total of approximately 283. And again, this case was opened internally on a board issued. Thoughts on that, Jackie?
Should know that the renewal period was until the end of 2016, so I guess technically, I don't even know if you can count all of them up except for that one
There's the grace
Current
period.
grace expired.
Just remember that you've had a few situations where we have already addressed this, and we have opened complaints
Yes.
based on
That's
this.
what this
So,
is based on, opening.
And at that point, we kind of discussed the option of a letter of warning or something along the line, because they came up, and just like today, we asked them, and they said, yes, we worked, and so.
This respondent did appear before you all.
That's correct, yes. And it looks to appear that, obviously, with him appearing before us in a prior meeting, but also he was very cooperative.
And
very
licensed since '94.
correct. And if I remember right, there were no previous complaints filed. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, my turn.
Here we go.
I would like your opinion, Ms. Robin, on why that we focus on 6218-114 as opposed to also focusing on 6218-113.
Well, what I'm saying is there's a dual responsibility here, and I can't tell, and I noticed that we've had some problems on notifications going out, and it would also appear with most of these, like the one coming up as well, that this is something new, and that somehow getting the notification from us, it spurs your memory to what you're doing. That doesn't dissolve your responsibility as an individual with a license. I'm just saying there are mitigating circumstances, and not somebody ignoring it, not somebody, as you can tell from the history, and that attempted to address it once they found out. And yes, there were surveys done and that shouldn't have been done, and I think a letter of warning saying you have a responsibility to take care of your license even if you don't get a notification from us.
Well, now go ahead, Ms. Sarah.
I think the letter of warning could cite 13 and
That's
14.
right, it can.
I think that would be the best solution, is to say, here's 13 where it says it is the sole responsibility of the licensee, and then also in 14.
Okay, now, let's stretch this I'm not disagreeing with you, okay? Let's stretch this a little bit. I'm going to do the devil's advocate, what if, okay? What I do best, maybe. All right, this registrant is called on the carpet over a survey that was done in this window of time and is taken to court. He is asked by the attorney in the court, Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so, whomever, or Mr. Respondent or whatever, were you licensed on, whatever date in 2017? And whatever that person says, yes, no, indifferent, whatever they choose to decide to say. But when the facts were revealed that, according to the records of this board and the state of Tennessee, that individual was not duly licensed at the time that they did that survey. Okay, now let's stretch it a little bit further. Let's find that the court finds against this surveyor because they said, well, your survey might have been okay, but you were not a licensed surveyor, so we're not protecting the public's health, safety, and welfare. All right, now, here's where we go next. This surveyor is the recipient of a huge judgment against him because of this case. Now, this surveyor then sues the state of Tennessee and this board for the action that just bear with me, for the actions that we took to allow them to have a license and basically turned a blind eye to a period of practice that they did that was partially illegal because of outside the grace period. So now that's my scenario I want to throw to you, because I feel like that's very important that we discuss that before we make any kind of decisions about this particular matter.
In this particular matter, though, you'll understand that you are taking action against this person by telling them what their responsibilities are. That's number one. Number two, if a judgment was rendered against them for unlicensed activity, that would be a criminal action, and that would where it would be going next. And I don't know how that would resolve. Number three, if a judgment came against them, the judgment would be based on I would imagine their actions as a surveyor, not on the unlicensed activity, but because they were false in the survey itself, which would be very different as well. And number four, I'm going to tell you, as a defense attorney, which I've been, I would very much argue in court, yes, it's a dual responsibility, and you can't place the blame all on this one person for not being licensed in that time period, so therefore you can't find against him solely. Now, having said all that, would someone be able to come against the state? That's very difficult. There's immunity here. unless there's something that could be clarified as arbitrary and capricious, which this would not be because we are doing something about it. It would be very difficult to come against the state in any kind of action. Can it happen? Yes, but I think by doing your letter of warning and by advising people they have this responsibility, I think we are doing what we need to do. I don't think addressing or a civil penalty changes that. It's the same thing. We're finding that, yes, there's problems and responsibilities on both parties' part. Yes, you need to look at it in the future, particularly in light of the fact that it happened to you, and that's what I think would happen.
Okay. Now, I'm going to direct this to Ms. Roxanne.
Tim, I would say
Go ahead, Ms. Sherry.
also remember these individuals have paid penalty fees for their license being expired anyway. So they have paid penalty fees. So at this point, like Robin said, a civil penalty would kind of just be, I mean, these people have had no discipline in the past, so it's not repetitive.
So
Yes.
let's review what penalty fees were paid.
I think it may be around an extra $100. It's not huge.
It's
but
supposed
they're
to be
reapplying
$20 a month.
when they renew, but that's during that first year. Once
Right.
they lose that year and they reapply, it actually ends up a little bit cheaper than the $20 a month. So, but they're paying what the reapplication fee is. What we've done with the reapplication fee is just waive the exam. Because they've been licensed for so long, that exam, as you all know, has changed completely, and just out of courtesy because of the compounding problems with that.
Okay. This goes back to my scenario at the start of every year about, or the start of every even year when we have had a renewal, about how many folks have not renewed. And we get this number that is in excess of 100, and then we try to whittle it down. And I guess my thought process is, how much longer are we going to have to continue to fight this battle in 18 for what should have been done in 16? And I realize, and I'm not throwing a rock at anybody in the room. I'm just saying, here we're trying to put a couple of cases to bed in the situation, and we have a third one that just showed up. How much longer and how many more are we going to have to kind of, and there may not be a true answer to that, but, somehow or another, I feel like that there's somewhere where we draw a line in the sand, and we just, I just see us doing this, in January of next year. I see us doing this same thing because somebody comes to us just like they did today and cries wolf again.
Well, may I address that?
Yes, ma'am, please.
If we have sent out the notification, even if they don't see the notification, they don't have an argument. If we can historically find where that was sent, we have no argument at all. But we change systems here, so we can't necessarily see what's happened on these
It's that
particular-
2015 period that I think we
That's
talked
exactly
about.
right.
So what happened in 2015 in rolling to the new system is that the renewals were created, and the system and the folks that handled it at the time think everything went out. The functionality was not quite there for me to be able to say to you, like I can for 2017, I know they went out, I know they printed, I can see them stamped, I can see them in their file. I still don't know that they got them, that the post office, did its
what
thing,
you're supposed to do,
and that
right.
the envelope really included. I
Right.
don't know that, but every piece I can say for 2017, and we're down to 79. So it looks better, and we did the courtesy renewal reminder, right? And that got about 15 off the list, and we're going to do one more mailing. I can't vouch for 2015. Could more come up? They could. I just have a hard time if we determined and allowed some to come through because of that, sort of glitch, even though it's their responsibility. I don't know at which point we stop letting others. Hopefully soon, because the reality is if you are working or interested in the license, you should be taking note. And maybe the board can make a decision and say, we're only doing this until November of 2018, and then they have to test. You'd have every right to do that because you're the ones considering waiving the exam.
I realize I'm the bad guy on the board, but I try to think through these things and try to ask hopefully intelligent questions, thinking ahead, because I just don't want to see us spending a large amount of time each and every meeting for several meetings to come still fighting this 2015 issue.
They'll know it's coming, because the minute you approve someone, you know that in the next meeting or so, you're
Right.
going to hear the case, if they really were working.
Right.
And this would be a totally different issue if we go like in 2017, that we actually sent the notice, that we sent the courtesy notice.
That's the
difference. That is the difference.
That's the difference.
And I think that's where we need to look at
Absolutely.
these
Exactly.
cases compared to maybe if we get someone next year.
Yeah. And it's
So-
not that nothing went, because clearly you all renewed, you knew you needed to, things did
Yeah,
go.
we are
but-
one of them.
Yeah, you're not one of them, and you kept up with it. So it's not that the 1,200 or so that were currently active didn't get anything. So it happened, it just wasn't flawless. This one may not have been completely perfect, but we worked at every angle we could. So I think that's the peace of mind that you can have. But we can stop at whatever point you decide the magic date to hear these are, and you then, moving forward, you have them test.
I do want to reiterate, as it clearly states, and we all know, that it is the sole responsibility of the registrant.
Yes, it is.
And that's
Above
for
and
every
beyond
profession.
all the efforts.
Yeah.
Just like it's our sole responsibility to renew our legal license every
I
year.
feel like that we're reaching out a huge olive branch,
we
and
are.
and I understand that. I want to be thoughtful and considerate and mindful to the registrants, and realize that everybody makes a mistake. Everybody misses something some now, but it's just my thought, and I appreciate all that Ms. Robin has said about the process, because it was a very concern to me. But it's just my thought that we just can't keep doing this.
Well, and mind you, if you had, and neither of these are this way, but if you had a licensee for this is the second time it happened, the story is different.
Right.
If you had a licensee that had happened after 2017, the story is different. But we are looking at a window in this period of time. We are looking at licensees who have an impeccable record, that have never had this issue come up before. And yes, things can, when it doesn't come in the mail, it can skip. You have a responsibility, but you can still, I can tell you that things change with my license, and I'm so glad the board tells me when I have to do something, and I will tell you I did it the last minute. Not because I didn't know about it, but because it slips your mind when you're working. So these are unusual sets of circumstances that you are considering this morning, and that I've been brought back to you today. And yes, people were working, and yes, they need to know they shouldn't be doing that, and yes, they need to know they have responsibility. But do I feel, as the attorney in representing a case for litigation, that it would be a good one to litigate? The answer, I think, is no. I think our best result is to tell them and give them an opportunity to understand, and then, in the future, there is no excuse no matter what.
Mr. Chair, thank you for allowing me to ask these questions of legal. I think that we got good insight. I don't feel like that they were unworthy questions.
No, I don't either.
I would like to respectfully ask the chair to consider at a point a little bit deeper in the meeting that maybe we discuss the matter of if we want to have any kind of timeline relative to this type of issue. But otherwise, I would like to go ahead with the legal report and move forward.
Yeah, okay. Not a problem there. Okay, back to the legal report, speaking of which. Ms. Robin has read into the record the summary on the specific case number 2-2018008271. I think we've had ample discussion here. I did understand that that we did choose to amend the actions to be in violation of TCA 6218-114 and 113. Is that correct?
That's what the letter of warning would say. That
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I would have done. I'm sorry. I never put what I'm going to put in there necessarily in letter warning, but that's what it should say. It's just a letter warning regarding the responsibility of a licensee to renew on time in a timely fashion, and that is number 13.
Okay. So will it refer to both 113?
Yes,
and
I can
114?
refer to both
Thank
of
you.
them.
Thank you.
Just clarification. Okay. With that and staff's amended recommendation there, do we have a motion?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All right, no further discussion. With that, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of approving the recommendation by staff as amended to include TCA 6218-114 and 113? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, with that, motion is passed. All right, Ms. Robin, we can move on to item number 3, please.
It is 2018-008321. Like the respondent above, this was open to determine practice in doing surveys during the period of expiration. Y'all waived the exams, and the license registration expired at the end of 2015. And in that investigation, it was determined that respondents performed a total of 248 surveys between 2016 and January 2018. This respondent has been licensed since '79, has no history of violations. The program core does not show when or if notification was sent in 2015, and updates prior to February 18th, when this complaint was opened, show a date of 2008. So it cannot be determined if notification was sent pursuant to the TCA 62-18-114. And again, my recommendation is a letter of warning and to include 62-18-113 as well, and to understand the responsibility of a licensee to renew timely.
Robin, I think sounds very similar to the prior case there, number 2. Is there any further discussion on this?
Make a motion that we approve the legal's recommendation, adding this 113 section.
All right, very good. All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion on that? All right, hearing none, those in favor of accepting the staff's recommendation as amended to include 113 and 114, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, item 3 is approved. Ms. Robin, item number 4, please.
2018-011641. Complainant states respondent placed survey stake on complainant's property while surveying adjacent property. Complainant states respondent did not give complainant 15 days notice and did not hail complainant when complainant states respondent saw complainant near property line. Complainant states respondent placed stake between 2 signs notifying of a shooting range. Complainant states respondent called police after complainant started shooting from 175 yards. Complainant states police were called and officer stated range was safe. Respondent states that the stake complainant alleges was placed on complainant's property was actually 5 foot 5 inches on the client's property. Respondent states shooting range signs were not placed by surveyor or based on survey, and location accuracy is questionable. Respondent states that as respondent worked up the ridge line on property, complainant's home was visible in distance and is located approximately 175 yards from common boundary of complainant's tract and the tract respondent was surveying. Respondent states respondent did not notify complainant 15 days prior, and respondent did not nor had any intention of entering complainant's property. Respondent states that once respondent was in a few hundred feet of boundary line, complainant retreated to the residence and then started firing gun in direction of respondent. Respondent states respondent could hear the bullets ricocheting off trees and limbs, and respondent called complainant to cease fire, but as complainant was wearing hearing protection, respondent was not hurt. Respondent then called police. Respondent states that several dozen shots were fired in respondent's direction, and the gunfire lasted about 15 minutes. A police report was made, but no citations were issued. Reviewer states that the only law related to complainant's allegation of no notification is TCA 62-18-124, notice to landlord owners. Reviewer states that this law only applies if surveyor is crossing or entering the property adjacent to the property being surveyed. In this instance, respondent accessed property owned by client, and reviewer states there was no need to trespass or notify, and therefore no violation of laws or rules. Therefore, the recommendation is to dismiss.
Okay, obviously based on the reviewer's opinion there, it did not sound like there was a violation of any of the rules or regulations of surveying there. I don't see any rules or regulation, but wow, that's a crazy story.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, as I was reading through it, just visions in my head of what was going on there. I bet that was a rough day.
Has that ever happened to any of y'all?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I've never had that happen. I've never had that happen. But then again, well,
Easy stuff happens up in the Tri-City area.
It's East Tennessee.
Back in the
That's all I'm
woods,
saying.
East Tennessee,
Yeah.
we have this kind of stuff.
I was gonna
A little deliverance.
Sounds like a Randy Thomas story.
I think I told you all my dad was a chemical engineer and a land surveyor in Illinois, and I can tell you I went out with him many jobs, and no, that never happened to him either.
Wow. Yeah, that's a story there to tell.
Never had a gun pulled on you on a survey.
You remember it.
You'll remember.
I can imagine. Okay. Just offhand, in my review of it, I didn't see any reason for this case to be continued, and I agreed with the staff's recommendation to dismiss. Jackie, Tim, anything further on y'all?
No problem. No.
Okay. Not hearing any further discussion. Is there a motion to be made?
I make a motion that we accept the recommendation and dismiss.
So a motion to accept the recommendation from staff to dismiss. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of staff's recommendation to dismiss, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Number 5,
Yes, ma'am.
2018-018611. Complainant states respondent was hired to survey foundation on complainant's property. Complainant states one corner pin was off by a foot, and contractor working on foundation did not realize this until 2 of the front walls were almost complete. Complainant states respondent was contacted to correct the pin, and that respondent stated respondent would pay for the walls to be repaired. At the time of this complaint, complainant states respondent had retracted offer to reimburse for damages. Complainant states complainant is in litigation for a respondent to pay for repairs. Respondent states that after determining that one pin was in error by 0.78 of a foot, respondent agreed to pay for replacement of a portion of the front wall, and that the placement of the pin only affected that wall, not the other walls. Respondent states respondent received an email from complainant's attorney requesting over $3,000 for value of labor and wasted material. Respondent states the complainant also had a lawsuit against the block crew for several problems on that wall. Respondent told attorney that the amount requested was out of line and asked for invoices for the block, cement, sand, etc., but did not receive response. Complainant in rebuttal attached an invoice for repairs of the wall and states the additional monies were for damaged material and rebuild. Complainant states email to attorney was offensive to complainant. This matter was sent for review by expert who determined that only one law or rule was implicated, and that is 5A, a matter of incompetence. Reviewer states, however, that reviewers only saw a single error, and that error did not meet the standard of incompetence, and the reviewer found no violation. My recommendation is close and flag. In the event that ultimately in litigation there's a finding of incompetence on the respondent, then we can go forward with it.
I think
Or
that's a
go
smart
back.
move there. Yeah, the action as far as the wall goes and those kind of things, the cement, the block, whatever, all those materials, that's not an issue for us to address. That's obviously a civil action. He'll have to work that out independent of this board. But yeah, I definitely would like and agree with that recommendation to hold off just in case there is
But what we would be doing
litigation.
is closing and flagging it, so that if it comes back that there is a finding of incompetence in the court hearing, then we would go forward. Based on what I'm reading and hearing here, though, I do believe that that's probably not going to happen, but this gives us an opportunity to go back and look at it again.
Yeah, based on what we have before us here, I don't see it as an incompetence issue. A mistake was made, but a mistake doesn't mean you're incompetent.
Let's hope not.
Hopefully not. That's right.
So
We're all in trouble with that.
Good point.
I'll make a motion that we accept the recommendation.
I'll second.
Motion and second to accept the recommendation from staff on this particular case. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
And then that concludes my portion, and I believe that concludes the legal reports I'll be presenting to you all, unless we change systems again. So, one can never tell.
Interesting. All right, Ms.
Thank you
Robin, we
very
certainly
much.
appreciate your time, and excellent job there. Thank you.
Okay, you ready for number 6?
Yes.
You want to paraphrase this one?
I can paraphrase mine. I highlighted them all, so I can do this. So I think I have 4 total to present, and 3 of mine are boundary disputes. So this should be pretty quick for us. So the first one is 2018026091, and I will tell you this is the first land surveyor case complaint that I had ever reviewed. So when Carol told me it was a boundary dispute, I went ahead and sent it to an expert just in case. So this one, it looks like the surveyor went out and he talked to what appeared to be the complainant's wife because he wasn't sure where a corner of the property was located. The complainant's wife, I assume there's a family that lives on this property, talked to her father-in-law who told her a point. When the respondent came back and said, well, that's not really where the line is, it's actually over here, some people's feelings got hurt, and they said, no, this is our property, we know where our lines are. It turns out that there was apparently some tension between the 2 budding properties, so one person said the line was here, another person said it was there. Eventually, the respondent said he made multiple trips and determined the corners from the deeds and other documents. And so this was submitted to an expert. The expert found no violation, said it was clearly a boundary dispute, and that the complainant should hire, in my opinion, their own surveyor, because this was not the surveyor of the complainant anyway, it was the neighbor's surveyor. So my recommendation was to close with no action.
In my review of the summary there, I agreed with that. It is straight up just a boundary dispute. There was some accusations flown back and forth. Families involved, obviously some tensions, as you put it, I think was well put. An accusation of fudged things, and the respondent saying that was not the case. Back and forth, he said, she said.
I do apologize for this one being a little bit longer. I try to make mine a little shorter, but I will tell you with them, if we are going to post them online in the future, it does help us to make them a little bit longer on the front end, because then we don't have complainants or respondents coming back saying, well, you didn't include X, Y, and Z. Because to me, when I look at some things, I'm like, well, that's not important at all. They don't need to know that. But to the complainant, it may be very important. So.
But, the recommendation, is to hire an independent surveyor to handle their property. Certainly that's their business. They can handle that if they want to. They can resolve it themselves. They can take it to court. But either way, I didn't see where any of what was stated in the summary is pertaining to business of this board here, and I agreed with the recommendation of staff to close with no action.
Motion to that effect, Mr. Chair.
All right. Motion, is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All right. Hearing none, with that in mind, those to accept the motion and second as made to accept the recommendation, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. With that, it's approved. I had trouble getting that out for some reason.
Number 7 is 2018-03-1911. Again, this is, there were discrepancies between the survey measurements on the survey map and the actual measurements of the pin. This individual, I thought it was very entertaining. The complainant said, I'm not a surveyor, but I went out and measured my own lines, and I thought that was kind of interesting. Again, we sent this one for expert review. This was the second one I'd ever reviewed, and the reviewer came back and said no violations, clearly a boundary dispute, and closed with no action was my recommendation.
Yeah, again, good decision to have the expert reviewer cover this one, and then came back with no perceived violations there, and I didn't see any in there myself. Obviously, a complaint. I did note the point that the complainant did state, I am not a surveyor, but measured a couple things. It happens. It happens. I can understand that. But again, I chose to accept the recommendation from staff there. I didn't see any need for further action.
Make a motion that we take staff's recommendation.
All right, motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion and second. Further discussion? All right, hearing none, those in favor of accepting the staff's recommendation say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, has passed. Item number 8.
Okay, this one's a little more complicated, and there's 2 respondents. So it's 2018-035811 is respondent 1, and 2018-036961 is respondent 2. And so this one, essentially what happened is respondent 2 owns a land surveying company. He is a licensed land surveyor, and respondent 1 was just, as he explained it, a laborer, did things around the office, I assume mowed lawns, did whatever they needed to have done. Didn't do surveys, yeah. So I don't know if he ever went out to the properties with a surveyor or what. So it appears that the complainant called the office, respondent 1 answered the phone, set up a time to go out and survey the property, took an old invoice and hand wrote on it that he was completing a survey for $900, went out. The complainant's spouse actually sent me a video where she videoed this man in the front yard. I think she was concerned by what he was doing. But he said he had completed the survey. It was $900. She paid him. Come to find out, the job was never completed. They never got any documentation back from the company. And when they called the company and talked to him, the owner, respondent 2, had no idea that any of this had occurred. I talked to respondent 2 as well as his attorney, and he was very apologetic. He had no idea that respondent 1 had gone out to this property, had set up a job. He had no authority to do that. And actually, respondent 2 paid the complainant the $900 back, and the attorney told me that they are actually actively trying to find respondent number 1 so that they can recoup the money from him in civil court. I will tell you, and I talked to Roxanne about this morning, for respondent 1, I did recommend $1,000. I will tell you, we have an address that we found, we don't know that it's Respondent 1. When I talked to Respondent 2 personally and the attorney, neither one of them could confirm a correct address and stated that they were having trouble locating this individual. So we can do the consent order. Chances of it ever getting paid are slim to none. Chances of it even being delivered possibly are slim to none. So we can do the $1,000, or otherwise we could close and flag it in case we were ever to receive an address. Then we could come back to you and say, we found him, we're going to go forward with the $1,000. So that one's completely up to you. But for Respondent number 2, the owner of the company, I did recommend to close that one with no action, because after speaking with him, it truly appears that he had no idea that this man completed the survey.
Yeah, this was quite a story. I had to read this one 2-3 times just to kind of grasp the magnitude of what's going on, and quite honestly, every time I read it, the more and more angry I got at it, to be honest with you, with Respondent 1, referring to Respondent 1. Now, Respondent 2, I can somewhat empathize with his position. I believe that he had no knowledge of what was going on, obviously did not authorize it. It sounds to me as though Respondent 1 no longer is employed by Respondent 2, understandably.
Correct.
And sounds like they also can't find him, trying to recoup the cost.
Yeah.
I do commend Respondent 2 with their actions here in trying to right the wrong, so to speak. I'm glad that they refunded the money and obviously took a proactive response towards it. But that does not sway my anger toward Respondent 1 in any way. I would like to do anything and everything that we can against Respondent 1 here, quite honestly. Because this, if our primary objective is to protect their public, this is our opportunity to do so. And this, I mean, we just can't have this. This is unlicensed activity. This is unethical. This is immoral on their part. But again, you know, I hold no grievances on Respondent number 2, although they do hold some employee responsibility of you know what their employees are doing. But obviously, this happened completely beyond anything that they knew about.
I'll tell you, our first step will probably be to reach back out to Respondent 2's attorney and just ask if they have located Respondent 1 before we send it, because we do ours kind of through a database where we can search addresses, and I think we found like 20 addresses for this individual.
There's
So
no guarantee that any of them are good.
So
Mr. Chair, I really wish you'd have told us how you felt about this matter.
Well, I tried to hold back a little bit.
I understand. I'd like to ask Ms. Sarah a question, please. I realize the complexity and the potential difficulty of what you've shared with us about maybe finding or not finding this individual. But I, like the chair, think that your original recommendation may be the best way to go, with the understanding that, you know, we're wearing the same set of shoes if we close and find later. So I lean towards going with your recommendation and making the effort via the Respondent number 2's attorney to see what you can find, because, I mean, you know, they're after this fella too. So, you know, betwixt the one us or them, somebody may find him.
yeah, I just know the last time I talked to him, he said we cannot find him anywhere at this time. So hopefully, I told him, I said, well, we have a couple addresses. Maybe we can figure this out. So.
Well, I trust with the resources that are out there. There's ways of finding him. There's ways. There's sources. You just need to tap into the right source there. And with enough persistence, they'll find him.
Is that the maximum amount that we could find?
Under your, I have to look at your civil penalties section. I think it's $1,000
Per day. We've never done
Yeah,
Per day.
It's technically $1,000
We just
per
did
violation
one
per
survey,
day.
One violation, yeah.
So
If
I
there's
don't like it
anything and
either,
everything
Jackie.
we can add to this to get this guy, I want it added on there, because I don't tolerate this kind of activity. This is beyond repulsive to me. And Respondent No. 1 hasn't replied back at any time to anything from this
No,
board's
I
action,
mean,
obviously.
yeah, because we sent the original complaint to the company office because that's the only address that we had, and so Respondent 2 responded on behalf of Respondent 1 stating, yeah, he's gone.
Okay, so, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm with both you guys on this. Whatever the maximum we can do, we need to do.
Okay, so it looks to me like we need to handle these individually in terms of motions, because we do have, is it actually 2 complaints? It is 2 complaints.
Yeah, it's 2
It
complaints.
is 2 complaints, so I do want to handle these individually. I think complaint 1 deals with Respondent 1, and complaint 2 obviously Respondent number 2. Recommendations from staff on Respondent 1 was a civil penalty in the amount of $1,000 to be satisfied within 30 days of execution of the consent order. Is that still staff's recommendation?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I make a motion that we accept that on this first Respondent 1.
On Respondent 1 and 1 only?
Yes.
I second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second in regards to accepting the staff's recommendation in regard to Respondent 1. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, so our recommendation from staff on number 1 has been accepted. Now, let's address the separate complaint on Respondent number 2. Staff's recommendation to be closed with no action. Is that still your recommendation?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any discussion here?
Oh, no, I move that we accept the recommendation.
Well, I'll second, and then I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right, we can open that for discussion then. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion, Tim?
When, Ms. Sarah, when a matter is closed, I assume the respondent does receive a letter stipulating that?
Yes, they get a letter that states, complaint number, blah, 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 was closed.
In this instance, I wish that we would be able, and it's up to you, but I wish that we'd be able to thank the respondent for being professionally responsible in refunding the abused client's money.
When I speak with
basically.
his attorney to see if we can get that address, if they've located Respondent 1, I'll make sure to pass that on.
Okay, I just feel like that's important because, that's one of the good things that one of our licensees has done, and I just think we need to note that, as the chair has aptly said before.
Yeah, and he had no obligation to do that. It was just morally the right thing to do, and I certainly want to make note of that. So if that could be added when you speak with the respondent's attorney, that would be good. Jackie, any thoughts, further thoughts?
No.
All right, so we do have a motion and a second on the floor to accept the staff's recommendation on Respondent 2 to close with no action. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so accepted. All right, Ms. Sarah, item number 9.
Okay, last one, 2018040391. And I will tell you, this was again that the respondent marked an incorrect boundary line. This one came in just a couple weeks ago, and so we did not send it out for expert review, which I would like to talk to you all about what your preference on a go forward is. Since this was my third boundary line dispute, I felt like I could review it and just make that call because Carol and I don't send all of them to expert reviews because it costs money, and they also have a leeway of 30 to 45 days to get it back to us, so it wouldn't have been able to have been presented. But on this one, the respondent had sent his employees out. They went out, pointed out some lines, talked to the complainant, sprayed lines. That second bullet point should say spray painted, not pained. Sorry.
Could have been painful.
Spray painted. The complainant states that the lines that they had spray painted that day were correct. When the respondent arrived a few days later, he had moved the lines, which complainant said was land theft in their opinion, which I thought was an interesting term.
I flagged that to question you on that.
Yeah,
I don't know what
I'd
that
never.
is, but okay.
And they said they filed it with, the county, and I was like, okay,
The thing.
yeah. So the respondent essentially came back and said, a few days after his crew went out, he had done some more research, looked at a few things, and realized the reshot of the rebar set at the missing corner was almost a foot off over on the complainant side of the property. So he moved the line. He was very apologetic. He did say that the neighbor, this is another situation where the neighbor had hired the respondent to do the job. He talked to his client and apologized for marking the line incorrectly. He spoke with the complainant, and I believe he thought everything was okay until this complaint was obviously filed. I will tell you the complainant did file a rebuttal, and when the respondent files their response, that's sent to the complainant. The complainant filed a rebuttal and sent us some photos of like the line before it was marked and the line after, but didn't really tell us this is the line before, this is the line after, and didn't provide any substantive information on my point of view, stating that it was the first line was correct versus the second line that he marked. So again, I said it's not sent out for expert review. It appears to be a simple boundary line dispute, and my recommendation was to close with no action.
Well, it may be a matter of semantics. I don't know that this is a boundary line dispute, rather an error in the staking of a boundary line, is the way I read it. It's kind of two different things here. The thing that I feel a little more comfortable with as far as the respondent goes was, in here it was noted that the respondent did contact the property owners that hired him and informed them immediately of the error and would be willing to contact the complainant as well. So I don't get the sense that there was a mistake made and he was trying to hide it or cover it up or anything like that.
He appeared to be very forthright with it. This was my error.
I do sense that. I also did not see anything in here of any resulting errors that happened as a result of the mistake, staking of the line. And that the error sounds, I don't have a time frame in here, but it sounds like it was fairly short period of time between the original line was staked, the mistake was discovered, and then restaked correctly. It doesn't sound like there was a length of time in between there, although it doesn't state exactly what that time frame was. But I don't see any cause of damages created because of this. And I am encouraged that the respondent owned up to the error, made contact with his client, offered to make contact with the complainant as well, and there just genuinely was a mis-staking of the line. Obviously, apologies were made, and that he owned up to the error. So I don't really see any damages in here other than perhaps a brief amount of time where the complainant had some issues with where it was. And again, I don't understand the reporting of land theft to the county. I just don't understand that. That kind of does not go credibly with me, to be honest with you, in reading through the story. But honestly, from what I see here right now, I don't see any reason for an expert reviewer, but I certainly want to get the opinions.
I agree with what you said. It's obvious that he made a mistake, but he corrected it as soon as he realized that he had made one. So we all make mistakes. And it's what we do after we make it.
I just would like
How you own up to it.
I just would like to ask the chair to better define mistaking.
Mistake?
Mistake.
Staked in error. How about that? Staked in error as opposed to misstaked.
No, I'm good. I'm good with it, and I make a motion that we accept the staff's recommendation.
I'll second that motion.
All right, motion and, hope I don't misspeak. Motion and second made. Is there any further discussion or comments on that? All right, hearing none. Those in favor to accept the staff's recommendation and close with no action, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
And I know that this would help us on a go forward. So like the boundary line disputes where it seems pretty clear cut, or, where like in this last one where you marked the spot and then you realized an error and went, do you want all of those going to expert reviews? Or if we see a boundary line dispute and we think, this looks pretty clear cut, that it's just an argument over, I think my line's here, you think my line's there. Like I said, the expert reviews cost us money, time consuming.
I don't know that I can give you a yes, no, black, white answer to that. Every case is different. In boundary line disputes, granted, ultimately if there is genuinely a dispute, it will go to another court, something we can handle. But in terms of the actions that the surveyor took to lead up to his opinion of where the boundary line goes, that does fall under our purview, and I would like to hear those kind of details. So as far as the boundary line disputes go, I can't give you a yes-no answer on it, but I do feel more inclined that those do need to go to a reviewer to see what built into the surveyor's opinion of that boundary line that now is in dispute. Ultimately, the answer can't be given until court makes it, but Tim, sounds like you got a thought on that? Well,
historically, Ms. Sarah, the two items that we really don't hammer on a lot are boundary disputes because of pending litigation, as Jay said, and so forth. And then, of course, when a registrant charges someone, unless there's other issues to where, maybe they did something in error. I think that, as Jay aptly said, there's probably not a clear yes or no, but I do think that legal should have some judgmental leadway with how you look at them, up to the point of where, and I do realize that it might delay it a little bit, but up to the point to where, just as you did with this one, you presented it to us and gave us the opportunity to review, discuss, and so forth. As time goes on and as you do more of them, I think you'll have that strong feel to where you're comfortable on some of those things. And as always, we go with what your judgment is as to how you want to approach. Sometimes there are instances where there has not been a review by a reviewer, and that was problematic. But in many cases, there's been as many or more, probably more reviews by reviewers that maybe weren't necessary either.
I think that's kind of our side of it. We don't want to send we don't want to send just everything and to get in the habit.
Right. You don't need to.
So sometimes it's easier for, Carol to hear you all say, boundary disputes, yeah, maybe expert, maybe not, because then she doesn't have to wait for me to pull open the whole file, review everything, and say yes or no, and she can go ahead and take that step for me.
And, obviously the heavy hitter stuff is, the incompetence and, those kind of things, unlicensed practice and that type of stuff.
My comment would be, when in doubt, send it to the reviewer.
Yeah. That's why the last one, we both reviewed it, and I thought, I think I can handle this one without it going to a reviewer. So that's kind of what we do.
Well, and it being on the heels of a couple others that were generally similar.
Yeah.
That made it easier too.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Done very well this time. I know we always try to fine tune, sometimes too much, sometimes not enough, sometimes obscure, but I thought for this meeting here, overall was done very well. So big thank you to both of y'all for doing that. Great job.
I agree.
Okay, we're looking at 11 o'clock. Director's report is next on the agenda.
I was going to say, I have one little legal thing that I can sneak in on you.
Okay, yep.
Just a little one. Roxana put it on your iPads, which is helpful. It's on page 23. And this is the Fresh Start Act. I think we may have mentioned it at the last meeting that it was legislation that was pending. And so this is just kind of a write-up that we did within the legal department. And it tells a little bit more about the Fresh Start. So it essentially applies to all of our programs in the regulatory boards, and we can't just deny someone because they have a felony on their record. It has to, in this statute, it now says it has to directly relate to the profession. Land surveying is kind of tricky. Some of my other ones are a little more black and white, with real estate agents being in someone's home all the time and being with them, as opposed to sometimes you all are just out in a field and doing your own thing. So that's the first determination, is it has to directly relate to the profession. And then even upon that, there's some factors, and those are listed, should be listed in here somewhere.
They are.
Yeah, there they are, the factors. They're on page 23 at the bottom. So once, those are the factors that you all have to kind of review before you deny an application based on a criminal conviction. And so what we would do if we were in that situation is we would have the application in front of you with the criminal background, and Roxanne and I would just walk you all through those factors just to make sure you took them all into consideration. And then it also gives the individual some appeal rights. So kind of the legislator's way of saying, just because somebody has a criminal background doesn't mean they shouldn't get a fresh start and be able to enter a profession. So
a couple of things, and we touched on it recently. I think we had an applicant that may have had a situation that might have fit this, and so y'all are going to take care of that, and that's good before we actually review them, and then that way we know that part of it's out the way, and I appreciate that. one question I might have is, I know it's been about 4 years ago, we took a license because they were convicted of, I'm going to call it moral turpitude, for lack of another term. The question is, in light of this, if they reapplied, then we would probably have to consider their application. And the second part of that is our board or our staff under any obligation, because of the new law, to look back and see where disciplinary actions have taken an individual's license and to notify them of this law, or is the law itself being out in public its own notification?
So this did go out in an e-notify to anyone that signed up for e-notifications. So if they maybe were a previous licensee that has been revoked or any kind of discipline, or they just, maybe they're a land surveyor in Kentucky and they want to keep up with what's going on in Tennessee, a summary of this did go out. I don't know that they would have any other way to be notified of it except that it is statutory now and you should know the laws of your state. Not saying that I know every law of the state, but I think that if we had someone that had been disciplined in the past, that yes, we would have to consider this and go through these steps.
I just was curious if the boards
If
were
he
put under
reapplied.
any obligation.
If they reapply.
Right.
I just was curious if the boards were put under any obligation to reach out to those
Notify
folks
the-
and
no,
tell them.
no.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Typically, anytime, and I don't know if it's the same way with this program, but other programs, anytime you have someone who has been revoked and they want to reapply, they typically come before the board anyway, to kind of give here's why I think that I should be allowed to have a license at this point. So.
All right, that's good to know. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, anything further on the legal?
Nope, I think that's it for
That's going to
legal.
cover it. Okay, all right. With that in mind, the next on the agenda is the director's report. Roxanne, I did want to ask, would this be a time to break that we could cover the gentleman who approached us earlier? If
The
Jamie's
rest of the
ready?
meeting is totally at your disposal. Jamie did an awesome job. She went and got the two. It's also a good time if you want to review the credit hours and the education for
That's
Mr.
what I'm
Souter,
thinking about.
however you
That's what I'm
prefer.
thinking about. Okay,
Because my piece is not that huge. If we wanted to time what's left, depending on how long the discussion regarding advertisement issues, an hour maybe, at the most.
all right.
So
Let me ask you this,
decide.
if we do decide to review the applications from the gentleman from before, does that need to be on record?
Yeah, we'll have to
yes,
stay on the
everything.
record because it's an open discussion.
And-
Doesn't make for exciting TV, but we can do it.
For consistency,
Yes, sir.
since this gentleman falls in with similar to two complaints we've reviewed, I think that we should, it's my opinion, but I'm asking you, I think we should do the same process for this gentleman if we agree that everything's in order.
So that was going to be my question to you all because that wasn't part of the motion for who was the first one that came?
I don't know that we made a motion for the two that were not
Bias
on
is the
your
one I'm
iPads.
speaking to.
Yes, bias is right here in front of me.
But the first one that spoke,
Like,
Leg.
Mr.
Leg.
McCarthy, Mr.
Oh, yeah.
McCarty.
they did a motion with him.
Oh, okay.
You did a motion just to waive the examination.
Right.
But then my question on Mr. McCarty and even Mr. Leg is neither one of them have stamped or held themselves out.
No complaints.
So on that one, on those two, would we open complaints or only Mr. Bias who said he was active during? We
Well-
can open one against all three and just stay consistent and say, when we have the situation, we're gonna open that complaint. But I know Robin used an investigator in the situation with the two we saw today.
But they admitted it directly when the two we approved at a previous
that's
meeting.
why I was
They-
thinking with
just
the-
like this time.
With the two this time, we can go ahead and open that complaint just to be consistent. I would probably do the same thing that Robin did and, send a letter of warning citing 13 and 14. But I might not send out an investigator because they've stated on the record that they didn't
Well,
perform anything.
Now, and I think you're 100% right what you said, but I'm going to go one step further. I think that it's important that in that letter that it says that they stated on record that they had not done any surveys, and they could be subject to disciplinary action if said surveys came about or there was problems or issues or whatever.
I'll
Is
write that down
fair?
so I can remember at the next meeting when
Yeah.
I present those cases.
But you see, you kind of see where I'm coming from? I
Yeah.
mean, you know, it's just like in a court of law, they made a statement, and whether they perjured themselves, we don't know, but that could come back, and I don't want that to come back. But again, as Jackie said, I want to be consistent. If we're going to deal with these folks, let's do them all the same. Go ahead, Jay.
All right, let me ask a question, though. On those two specific that stated on the record that they did not perform any surveying during the time that their license is expired.
Which would be Mr. McCarty and Mr. Leg.
Correct.
Yes.
The letter of warning, as I understand that we're discussing at this time, what are we warning them against?
So basically, it could, in my opinion, it might not for those two gentlemen be a letter of warning. It may go kind of a different step and be a letter of instruction.
That's what I'm after.
Which says, here's what 13 says, here's what 14 says. This is on you. Yes, we are supposed to send you notice, but at the end of the day, going back to 13, it's the sole responsibility of you.
Is a letter of instruction, we'll call it that for now, is that considered a disciplinary action?
So neither a letter of instruction nor a letter of warning are disciplinary action.
But clearly, the wording kind of implies a little bit of a different level,
It
right?
does.
Yes.
It does.
So-
Okay, I wanted to clarify that it was not a disciplinary action to begin
Correct.
with, and then I'm more comfortable with the letter of instruction in this particular case
Right.
because I'm not saying that they were aware, obviously they were not aware that their license was not active, but they didn't actively perform surveys
Right.
during that time. So
And
there's no
so-
violation there.
And so what'll happen is we'll open the administrative complaint, we'll send it out to them, letting them know, hey, there's been an administrative complaint open because you were, we are unaware if you were actually performing surveys. Because I want them to say, and not only on the record, but in a response to me, I was not performing surveys from December 31st of 2015 until July, 26th, 2018. So that way we
Or
kind of
if
have
they were doing it under the supervision of another surveyor.
yeah. So we want all of that in writing. And at that time you can say, I don't want to even send a letter of instruction. But I think what the path that Tim and Jay are going down, or Jackie, is that when we have these gentlemen that come up here, whether or not they say, yes, I was, or no, I wasn't, that if we're going to waive that examination, we can't I don't want to cherry pick who we're opening complaints against.
That's all I'm trying to do, be consistent.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to caution is I don't want a registrant or expired registrant at the time to feel hesitant to approach the board to say, I want to do the right thing, I realize my mistake or error, and I want to make it right, which is what these gentlemen are doing.
Right.
They were not conducting surveys. They weren't doing anything against the rules or regulations at the time of their expired license. I don't want them to be hesitant to say, if I do the right thing, then I'm going to get a letter put in my file, and I don't want that. I just don't want us to create a barrier
Right.
for the registrant who realizes the error to come forward.
And I mean, that will definitely be up to you all at the next meeting when they're presented. If I present all the facts and you think, why would we send a letter of warning, a letter of instruction to these individuals that didn't do anything during that time frame? At that point, they can be dismissed. And so I think it's just a good general rule to say, if we waive, if they come before us and we don't know yes or no.
Right.
So
if you're okay, Jamie's going to hand you all the documents. They're not identical, so I'd like to do the easy one first, if you're okay. As we've been doing the legal report, I've been glancing through what we call their license overview. So we'll look at Mr. Kenneth Leg first. You want me to hand it out?
If I could ask while she's passing that out, if we could just take a 5-minute break here real quick? Just use the restroom real quick? We're just going to take a quick 5-minute while you hand those out. We won't deal with them until...
Will you put us on pause? Not on...
the one you gotta remember.
Thank you, Chairman. We're back on.
We've got some information here on, this is on Mr. Leg. Is that the one we're looking at first?
Correct. And Jamie went through our system while we were doing the legal report, so she's pulled everything she could get her hands on, and I really appreciate that immensely, so that we can try to conclude this. The first thing on Mr. Leg you see is what we call his license overview. It's really the view of everything. And so quickly what I've pulled, and if I've missed something and Jamie's seen it, she'll point it out or you all can ask questions. You can see under certificate date, he renewed December 12th, 2013. That is his last renewal completion, everything when his last license went out on Mr. Leg. So that was considered timely. Then on the second page, I also want to point out that he paid timely every single renewal. You will see on page 2, 280, 280, 280. That means there was no $20 penalty. He's always, whoever paid for him, yes.
Mr. Adams
Thank you,
renewed
Mr.
timely.
Adams renewed timely.
Ultimately, it was Mr. Leg, though.
I'm going to give,
Mistaking.
There was mistaking, yes.
I'm going to let Mr. Leg
Today.
take some of that credit, but in any case, it was always done. His continuing education was done. So what has happened since then is on March of 2018, he has also, and this is on, I think, page 5, paid the $400. So he's actually submitted his fee, paid it, and I think then in communications at that point with Jamie, would have realized that he needed to reapply because he's past the date, resubmit his plats, his application, and take the exams. And that's the piece that he was wanting to be forgiven. So everything on here, he submitted his continuing education, I'll let you all review, appears to be exactly as he has stated, and there is no history of complaint.
Excellent. Okay. So it sounds like a very thorough and attentive history as far as renewals, as far as PDHs, no disciplinary action, and that we are in hand with all the required PDHs. So the only thing really left administratively is covered, but a decision on the board here in terms of the applicant's request, registrant's request to waive the testing that is required. Am I correct in saying that?
That is correct.
Okay.
And again, just to kind of put these 4 or 5 requests that we've had, Jamie reminded me, and she is right, they still have to submit the plats and everything. So it may take them a while to get back to active, but just the waiver of the exam is all we can do.
Still have to apply.
Still have to apply
And
with
all the
correct
requirements of the application.
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
Exactly.
Are there other fees above and beyond the $400?
That is his total. I mean,
That's the grand total.
He's paid his grand total.
Okay.
And
Go ahead.
does that fee cover 2018 and 2019?
It will bring his license active until 2019, till December 31st. Yes.
That is,
So the sooner he gets everything in, obviously, the longer he has of an active license.
So effectively, it should be prudent that the board or someone notify these individuals that are actually forgiven in this process by the board along with the waiving of the examination. Along with the extra $240 for the late fee of $16. So technically speaking, the board, as far as being nice guys, the board is forgiving $520, and we're allowing them to not take the exam.
Well, yes and no. So when someone reapplies, again, considering, let's assume he took the exam too. If they were to reapply, I think that fee's $200 or $280? $200, right? So it's just $200, not $400. So a person that's reapplying doesn't need to get caught up on renewal, technically speaking. So I don't know that the board's actually forgiving fees, because the statute doesn't say if you reapply, you pay all the old fees and the reapplication. In essence, it's less money to reapply financially, because that renewal isn't lingering there for you to pay. Once you couldn't renew, it stops lingering, if that makes sense.
Only if we don't ask them to take the exam.
For the exam, yes. Not for the renewal. The renewal
Right.
again just kind of goes away, yeah.
Yeah, because they would be dealt with
Yes.
as a reapplication, and then they'd have the exam fees and so forth.
Correct. So yes, they are
So
saved.
yes, we actually are forgiving something,
Or the testing vendor is forgiving
Right.
something, but yeah.
unless I'm mistaken.
All right.
So, this gentleman has reapplied, though.
Yes, he actually went online, I think, right? Or sent it? Check.
But I haven't received his documents. I haven't.
And we'll have to review that.
No, the
so
only
his-
thing he sent in was an application.
So his application's incomplete,
Correct.
so we need to notify him.
Yeah. Well, and Jamie does. I mean, and later on we'll review, like today you all don't have any applications to review, but I want to update you of those in the pipeline. So that is, of course, a big portion of what she does is follow up so the applications are complete. The two gentlemen we presented several months ago still haven't presented a full application because the board will have to look at those like they would a brand new person, and you haven't. So we've forgiven the exam, but the application process is, still includes
Their
all the
licenses
requirements.
still are
Expired.
expired,
Correct.
as long as they're aware of that.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
I figure they are, yeah.
Well, now the letters of warning will go out, so.
Tim brings up an excellent point about the forgiveness that the board is extending here in terms of those fees. I don't know that I'm too much in favor of that. I don't know that there's anything we can do about that because I think it's an administrative rule probably that could be looked at. It's statutory, really? Okay. Perhaps needs some looking at because it's kind of cheating the system in a sense. And especially with these specific applicants who were practicing during that time.
Right.
So-
And I think the reapply, probably again, just because we have more than one profession under our belts, we can say for most professions, that's the case when you reapply, the thought is you're going to test or do something else, so it's not just about the money.
It's true.
Here, we're waiving the exam, which has some fees and stress, obviously, but the renewal goes away, you didn't renew.
All right, we're kind of getting back on focus here
Okay.
with Mr. Legg's application here, or request, I should say. It looks like administratively, he's done everything we've asked for. It looks like the paperwork is here. It looks like the PDHs are done. The payments have been made. It really just needs a decision on the board here as far as whether we're going to fulfill his request of waiving the exam. So if there's any more questions or comments, anything else you want to address on this, if not, I'll entertain a motion on that.
I think the motion would be, Mr. Chair, that we would waive Mr. Legg's exam, and then we would ask him to do the proper applications, et cetera, and so forth, in order, and then we would also file a board complaint,
Right.
as we have on the other gentleman,
Right.
and we will deal with that when it comes back before us.
Yep. I think we discussed that a little bit
And
earlier.
if I
Yes, you're
missed
absolutely
anything,
correct.
Ms. Sarah, correct me.
But the board complaint is just to get him on record to say that he hasn't stamped any surveys during that time period. Okay.
Yes. And it's also, Jackie, the consistency of this particular scenario.
Right.
And then I would expect at our next meeting, we'll address that in the legal action towards that complaint if it's ready to go, yeah. Okay, all right, so I guess
In the
was that a
meantime,
motion?
he needs to
Yes,
get
sir.
his
That was a
application
motion.
I think that was a
complete.
motion.
Yeah.
We'll make a motion of it, all right. So a motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion on that? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, I think that addresses Mr. Legg's request there.
Do we have to address Mr. McCarthy?
We already have, he's finished.
Motion was already
You
made on
had
that
everything
one.
on your
Did you
iPad.
actually go back and make a motion to open an administrative complaint? Because you did
Yes,
not do that earlier.
Right,
so-
that's
Addressed,
why I
yes.
was asking.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Mr. Chair, if it's in order, I'd like to make a motion that an administrative complaint be opened against Mr. McCarthy.
Okay, motion made. I believe it's Mr. McCarty, I believe. I could be
McCarty.
wrong.
Okay.
It's McCarty, okay.
McCarty,
We
I'm
know what you're
sorry.
talking about. We're good. Okay, motion?
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so that motion is accepted and approved.
Next, you're reviewing Mr. Philip Bison. If I could get you to switch your documents, let's look again to be consistent at his license overview. Unclip those and you'll see the split. And I'm focusing on the license overview to be consistent with, so far we've had 4 of these situations, to see if he falls in line right with them or the board wants to discuss his differences. So Mr. Philip Weiss should have renewed in 2013. If you look at his renew date, he renewed February 27th of 2014. So he was late on his last renewal. And then we'll kind of walk through that. I see him being late on renewing every single time since 2003. And you'll see that by going to page 2 of page 7. And you can see 340, 360, 360, 300, 300. So the 280, the last time he renewed timely was in 2003. Okay, that's a pattern of just always renewing late, whether the board wants to consider that or not in decisions that I make with other programs where the fee is at my discretion to waive. If it's just $20, I always look at that, because if you're telling me you're never late and this is important to you. Then the other piece on page 4 is he has had a complaint. Now, that complaint was dismissed, and obviously we don't have it in front of us to be able to say to the board, what was it about? But on page 4 of the 7 pages, you can see the complaint number. Then all the way on page 5 at the bottom, if you will, this is what is our stamp shot of everything that happens in our system. So it's a really cool thing, but I was looking for that request, he said, of inactive, and Cody making it inactive. If Cody had made it inactive, or anyone, this would be stamped to clearly show sometime in 2015, 16, or 17 a switch to inactive. It's never said the license was inactive. Because you can't erase this piece where it says VR batch and so forth, the history, that's kind of locked in the technology. So I think it's easy to misunderstand expired versus inactive,
Right.
but I don't think that actually happened. Now, whether Cody miscommunicated, that's a whole other thing. But I think he's been expired like all the others, realized later, and again, just, yeah.
But that does kind of change things, doesn't it? I don't know that the facts here that we're viewing quite matches up with the story that he presented to us, or at least maybe not all the story.
And I don't know that he ever said, I've always paid timely, right? We didn't ask
Oh, I
that.
don't think he
So
said
that
that,
didn't
no.
happen.
Didn't ask?
Right, and we
Didn't
didn't
ask
ask
to the
about
state.
previous complaints, but the inactive piece, whether it was misinterpretation of what Cody said or whatever, that didn't happen. He really just expired and didn't follow through with any communication that might have been there.
And
What about,
that complaint was also in 2006, so that may have some bearing that it's been over 10 years ago, so.
But as far as PDHs go, we do have copies of some PDH certificates. Do we know administratively if he is up to date on his PDHs? He is.
With what he gave us today, he was good. Those certificates with what we had in the system for the last renewal cycle and this current renewal
Okay.
cycle.
Okay, so
But
he's good there.
He was expired.
Now-
He just turned in those to finish out both cycles.
Now, he stated he had paid $280, but we don't show any old money waiting for him. I'm always concerned if someone says I paid and then I went ahead and paid again, because again, our role is to make sure that things aren't just lingering in payment and that money's accounted for correctly. So to this date, right, correct me if I'm wrong, Jamie, but he hasn't given us any kind of money, not the $200 to reapply or the $280 to renew. And had he sent in the $280, it of course wouldn't have been enough because he was running late all through 2016 anyway. Yeah.
I don't show any payments and he hasn't sent any. I didn't know he was coming today, so.
But I asked one of them IT questions. I didn't know we had a Zendesk.
We do. Let me tell you about Zendesk. So,
Talk to him.
you talk to them anytime you call or someone calls, or when they say I called, I didn't get a person. Sometimes it works flawlessly and really is a good system. We've had a lot of turnover with staff because because Tennessee is so wonderful and our unemployment rate's low, right? So if you can pick and
We're going to work
choose
somewhere
jobs.
else.
You can go somewhere else after people chew you out all day. So with that in mind, Zendesk is our system, and it's for all of the regulatory boards, and I believe there are a couple other things in commerce and insurance, but it is the phone system, so we ticket every single phone system, so we know who called, what number, and emails come through Zendesk, and they're sent to folks and tracked and so forth. So yes, that's what you're seeing there.
You all don't really have to deal with it, but sometimes I get the lovely emails from Jamie and other of her colleagues that say, "Here, Sarah, here's a crazy question that came in on Zendesk. What do you think?"
This one's yours.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Enjoy. Yeah, thank you so much.
But yeah, the first time it came to me and they said, "This is from Zendesk," I was like, "Who's Zendesk?"
Quite active with Zendesk here over, what, June and July? Yeah.
And he admitted, he's working on something. So somebody looked up his information, and I think that was then the prompt to call us, email us, and try to get this moving.
Well, you're right, the other one was the easy one. This was not so easy. I do kind of have a little issue with the inconsistencies here. Although one thing, if he is consistent on, is his late payment. He's late. He's consistently late. I don't mean that as a good thing either.
You have those people. We have them in this building too. It's okay.
Yeah. I mean, it happens, but consistently every year.
Every 2 years.
Every 2 years. Excuse me, every renewal period. That kind of brings issue to me. And he was pretty adamant about having submitted the payments and then resubmitted a payment, if I understood it correctly.
That was my concern. Whenever I hear the
And then-
resubmit, I want to find the first one, just
Right.
because I
Because
have
we
to.
should. Yeah.
To me, it sounded like he said he submitted 280 and then he submitted 300 a separate time. So I was a little confused with. I mean, now if he can show us a check that was
It's a
deposited,
check. Yeah, come on.
No, if he has paid, he will not pay again. We will find the money, we can apply it, he can still do the application, the plats, everything else will still be needed. If the board is still okay treating him as close to all the others as possible and waiving the exam, I don't want to pay him again. When anyone says I paid way back then to Cody, I've got to take it seriously and say, can you ask me, send me copies so we can trace it. So we will definitely do that, whether he's paid twice or not, find out where the money is, because right now we don't have his.
Miss Sarah?
yes, sir.
This one being, I'm going to say, slightly different than the others that we've handled. I mean, the last one was a little bit different than the others because of the admission of not. This one is a little bit different. He clearly admitted that he's been doing work, he's rolling right along. Are we reaching out too far to do something different in this scenario? Again, I've sat here all meeting and stressed consistency.
So what I would do in this situation is, if you all decide to waive the examination, if you recall the two gentlemen that Robin presented for today, when they were here, they openly admitted that they had been performing surveying. So I would, in this situation for me, it would be different. I would send out an investigator to get, documentation of how many surveys he's done since.
Like we did with the previous.
Yep.
Yep.
And then I would
Agree with
present
that.
all of that information to you all. And at that point, I mean, that's your option to go what route you want to on the legal complaint side.
And another area that he is, no, I'm confusing we've presented too many today with the same,
Yeah.
scratch that thought, so we're good. Yeah, an investigation.
This one to me, I do know, like you said, his is a little different, but with the conversations that we've had about the switching of the systems, I think that we should probably treat this one similar to the ones that we've seen.
Issue today is whether we want to waive the exam or not.
Right.
Then once
Once I present it next,
and once the administrative
complaints
complaint is
open and you see.
then we can discuss the late fees being consistently late, or the fees.
The thing is, the two we ruled on today I felt like that they understood that they were not to be stamping surveys until they got a final decision from this board. I don't think that this gentleman comprehended that.
Well, and I think that's something
I
that.
disagree. I think
Okay.
he said that once he
Since he found out in
realized that-
February,
that
he has not done
expired,
any
he
work.
has not stamped anything.
Yeah, that's what he said, because that's when Jay was questioning him on, no, I don't mean when you found out, I mean when your license expired.
Right.
But he said no, as of February of this year, when
Whenever he realized
the
that they
attorney called
expired,
him,
yeah.
he said he'd stopped. Now, I mean, Jamie and or Roxana will talk to him on what decision came out of this, and they can stress that as well, stating, the board wanted us to stress that until you reapply and you're approved, you cannot work.
Well, he can work, but he can't stamp work. He can't.
Right. So, and then at that point, when I send an investigator out, I can tell that investigator, hey, I want you to check everything until, let's say he reapplies and he's approved in 2 months. I would say, I want you to check everything until September 1, 2018. And so if he has something between today's meeting and September when he wasn't licensed still, then I think that's where you can say, okay, we're going to up. What,
Actually, if he has anything
maybe since February.
since February,
So,
he knew.
so there you
That's when
go.
he said he didn't.
Yeah. I mean, that's my only concern. Again, like I say, I want to be consistent, but this one just feels different. I'm sorry. I don't know why, it just feels different.
And so I thought I had the wrong person, but I have the right one. So he has said he went inactive, or in his mind, he thought he was inactive, and he was comfortable with that, even though we know he would have needed to ask it, and it does not reflect it on the records. My concern with that is, during that time, he wouldn't have worked either. So that's really important if he really thinks that that's the case, that he had gone inactive and is asking to come back to active.
Well, I mean, clearly, I mean, if he sought advice from David Matthews, I know David's told him, because, I mean, David sat right here.
You're right. There's something that feels funny about this one.
Yeah.
There's just inconsistencies, but at the same time, I don't want to cloud the action that just because he is always late on his licensure fees, that has anything to do with the direct ability of his surveying.
I think that's a
or the
legislative
protection.
action that we need to have a change in, and not have this $20.
Well, I think if you go with no grace period, you're going to have more issues than what you're having
No,
now.
I didn't say no grace period. I just said it.
Because
needs to
most of our
change.
boards have a 2-year grace period that charge a fee every month.
What is that fee? It varies.
It
I think
varies.
that's what them.
It varies.
Oh, very.
20 a month is-
Some of mine are like 25 a month. I do have some that are straight 25. I have some that state if it's between 2 months and 6 months, it's X amount. If it's between which, let me tell you, becomes an even bigger issue when you're trying to determine how much the fees are exactly.
What would you say the average of all the boards that you work with, the late fee?
I mean, auctioneers goes up to $200 to 2 years. Appraisers goes somewhere to that nature. Real estate, I believe, goes higher.
That's why I think you were alluding to. Is
Now, in some programs, you cannot waive that exam. If the person let it go away, in other words, the exam it says you shall. There is no waiving of that exam, so.
And I think that's the bush we're beating around on here a little bit. With this situation, and it may go away, hopefully, with the new system or whatever, but with this situation, we may need to explore a few of those things that we can do that would be, I'm just going to say, politically correct.
Well, if I can be honest, with the 2017 renewal, if we get to that, come December 31st, 2018, and we run into them, I will not be recommending or thinking about us waiving the exam, because we've gone over and above what I can definitely attest to with the technology, with the email reminders, with the phone calls being tracked, emails are tracked, and so we won't have that, oh, I spoke to somebody and it's lost. It all comes through the send desk, so being comfortable that you just reached us and we did nothing, that's not going to be the case. It'll be hard to waive those exams.
Hey, Mr. Chair, if you're ready for a motion.
I am ready.
I think I'll make a motion that for Mr. Bice, we waive the examination and we file a board complaint.
administrative.
It's a board complaint. Yeah, it's a board complaint. Yeah, the same as we just did for the others.
I'll second.
Okay, so we do have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion on that? Vote. Those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right. And Mr. Chair, if we could, I think this is a good time, and it's at your pleasure, to discuss how we're going to handle any more of these that we get. It's my notion, based on what Ms. Roxanne just said, that we tie this little adventure in with December 31st of this year, which is also the same date that the renewals expire, basically. So, in other words, we would be giving any registrant that's in this situation from 2015 through the end of 2018 to step forward and try to make these efforts as these other surveyors have to try to resolve that issue. But if after that date they have not done that, then they've got to do basically what the statute requires.
statute says.
Take the test, whatever it is, reapply the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
Is that in order?
I mean, we can definitely do that. I don't want us reaching out to those in the 2015 pipeline that have applied, that have expired, and say, by the way, we are willing to waive. I think that opens a whole avenue of potential issues. But I think we recognize that up until then, we will be presenting them to you with the thought that we're going to be waiving the exam and opening.
I'm just trying to create a deadline, and I think
that's perfect.
Maybe where Ms. Sarah's going, that maybe even with that thought process, and I haven't made a motion yet, even with that thought process, we still need to look at them on a case-by-case basis, as we just did with these right here, just in case there's some anomaly that maybe we didn't anticipate. Is that fair?
I mean, I think putting a deadline on it is good, and I would say, tell your surveying friends to tell their friends to check your license. I mean, I check my bar license all the time just to make sure. I mean, my renewal is the same day every year, so I know when mine is. I don't need a reminder, but I check mine all the time just to make sure,
Anytime I find a number on a cap that I don't know, I go look it up, and while I'm in there, I look my own.
Well, and you never know if somebody is in the system. I mean, there's human error. They may accidentally mark something on your file that's not right, and you could be inactive all of a sudden. And you're
I think the part that's also hard, or kind of keeps bringing the question back, is if you called someone, try to send in your PDHs, and you paid a fee, and you never got the license, something is still wrong. Something is still, whether it's our fault or whoever, something is still not finished.
And again,
Yeah.
I'll just repeat myself. It is the registrant's responsibility, ultimately, and that's part of being a professional.
Sole responsibility.
Yeah, sole responsibility. So, and the avenues are there. It's for the registrant to take those paths.
So, Mr. Chair, would it be in order to make a motion that says for registrants who did not renew after December 31st of 2015.
Timely renew in 2016.
Because they had until December 31st,
Okay, I'm sorry, thank
2016
you.
without coming.
Okay, December 31st, 2016, that this board will continue to review those until December 31st of 2018. Is that fair?
With the thought of making, waiving an exam or doing whatever.
Right.
Yeah, because
we won't present them.
We can't. If Roxanne and I have someone that comes to us on, January 15th, 2019, we still have to present it to the board.
Right.
Because they have that right. But that's the point where you can say, we're not waiving your exam.
Board's leniency may not be.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, at the end of the day, we'd be able to say, if this motion was approved, that we gave you 2 years. Plus, you had a free one that was in the grace period. So you really end up with 3 years. Now, that's why I don't want to see us doing this next year for 2015s. And because I think Roxanne has already addressed the 2017s, and we know what to do with them.
Fair enough. All right, that was in the form of a motion, is that right?
Yes.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. So we've had discussion on that. I think it's pretty clarified what the motion was. I hope we got that on record, I'm sure. All those in favor of adopting the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So that is on the record for everyone to know. Roxanne, is it close enough for lunchtime?
It is completely at your discretion. It is. We've got 11:45. We can take a lunch. Otherwise, what we've got pending is at least an hour, and I don't want to put you
We
off.
have to review that. You can.
Yes.
Transcript.
Unless you want to review the transcript now or want to break for lunch, and when you come back, we can start with the transcript or finish everything on the agenda.
Let's break for lunch, and then
Okay.
we'll hit the transcript when we
Okay.
get back. How about
We'll start
1
the-
o'clock? Is that enough time?
1 p.m. restart. Sounds
Yes,
great.
ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, we'll do that.
This morning.
You're on the record.
On the record.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Miss Roxana.
Welcome.
I hope everybody had a good lunch break there. I know we sure did. It was good. A good time down at the marketplace. We missed you, Galen. We missed you.
Sorry, I wasn't there.
Okay, we're going to pick up kind of where we left off. I think we had agreed that we would handle the question on the young man. I can't think of his last name right now.
Souter?
Thank you, Souter. See, it happens. Mr. Souter, he had asked us to review his credit hours from his transcripts, so we're going to take a little bit of time here and review those. Where can we find the transcripts? I know they're on here.
Yeah, they're on your iPads. He starts on page 48.
48, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Transcript is, it's deeper in that.
Yes, it is. You're right.
83 maybe?
It's in a pretty good way.
Sounds about right.
Okay. And we are looking
83.
at the survey-related hours based on his transcripts. He was an applicant with a CE degree, applying under Category 2, I believe that is,
Yes.
which requires the 24 hours of surveying-specific courses. What I would like to do here is obviously review the courses that he has showing on his transcripts, break those into the categories of surveying-related courses, the 1, 2, and 3, and basically come up with a total there. Of course, he has to have a specific number in each category. It's not a total, rather a total by category that we're looking for. And if he fails to come up with the numbers in any category, I'd like to be able to present him with the numbers first and then be able to possibly advise him on a course of action, quickest course of action, for him to become eligible that way. So,
My question is, do we have the list to look at?
Rule.
No,
Okay.
no.
For my purposes, what are the categories? Are they titles of categories or?
Okay, let me,
Walk me through.
may I do a little
Yes.
history
Yeah, 'cause
for what it's worth?
That would help us.
It would help us.
Okay,
Because we're
All
gonna,
right.
because the statute just says 24
okay.
semester. So,
board-approved hours.
Right.
Right.
In and about 2003, when the board previously was working towards complete licensure by a BS degree, there were categories created under 62-18-109, and there's 3 categories, A, B, and C, and the board found it necessary at that time to provide direction to the applicants as to what type of courses and level of courses that they needed to have in order to qualify under each one of those categories. At that time, which our licensing law is a little bit different now, but very similar. At that time, we had a Category A, which is basically a 4-year degree in surveying. We had a Category B, which is a science, engineering, or technical degree of 4 years with 24 hours of semester hours of board-approved coursework. Okay? And then we had a Category C, which was a BS degree in anything, basically. And you had to have 36 hours of board-approved coursework. Because of that language, and that language still remains in our current licensing law under Category B, C, and it actually falls under D now because of the associate degree path that we have. The board at that time created a document, which I have in my hand, that basically stipulates how, the last revised in 2008, by the way, and it stipulates the categories for these hours in order to meet the classifications if you're a non-degreed surveyor but are applying with a degree. Okay?
The board created this.
Pardon me?
The board created this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so it's an internal policy.
Yes, ma'am. It's on the
Yeah.
letterhead and everything.
Well, I think it goes into in the statute, it says board.
Right.
Yeah.
It does.
But we just have to make sure, I mean, it is an internal policy, and we have to turn those over to the legislator, and I don't think that we've turned this one over.
Shame on you.
I didn't know this policy existed until you just said categories earlier. I made a note of that. So,
Well, it exists. It has been used and continues to be used as a template for how we evaluate non-BS degree individuals applying for licensure. And I think that the board, when they put this together, I think Jackie was on the board when it was put together the last time, reviewed the last time in '08, because I didn't come on to '09. It's pretty thorough. It needs to be reviewed again, probably, but it gives us as members again, I'll use the word template or go by, so that we know how these things need to fit in when we look at an applicant's education, just as we're looking at here in this particular situation. So for the applicant that we're discussing, he's applying with a what we call a Category B scenario, which means he has an engineering degree already, and he needs 24 hours of related courses to surveying. And the structure of this internal policy says that he is to have a minimum of 18 hours of courses equivalent shown in List 1. There's 3 lists that are included in this, and the list encompass courses from various different institutions, and they give us, again, that template of what fits where. In other words, a category or a List 1, we usually call them categories, but a List 1 course is a junior level or above course, basically, or graduate. A List 2 course would be more of an undergraduate course, and a List 3 course is more of a general science-related type course. I can give you a real quick example of each. A List 1 course would be, for example, something as surveying, measurement, and analysis, to give you an example. A List 2 course would be something such as dendrology, study of trees. A List 3 course would be something like statistics, for example. So you can kind of see that I went from the more complex to the least because that's the way our lists are from 1 to 3. So what we have tried to do, at least while I have been on the board, is we've tried to use this document as our template to review these transcripts in order to be able to evaluate whether an individual meets it or not. Now, obviously, the University of Kentucky is not in this list, but the course descriptions here are, and if we've had questions in the past, we have asked applicants for syllabus so that we can clarify that this is a certain list course or it's not. Again, we try every way in the world to try to embrace that applicant because they have went beyond the high school level and went on to get the bachelor's level, in some cases even a master's level. So we had some way to review these. So that's my little history course for what it's worth. And Sarah, it's time for you to smack me on the hand or whatever needs necessary.
You know, if as I've not seen it, is it on the website? Are those policies there?
It is.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am,
All right.
it is.
So we just haven't pulled them.
It sure is.
Okay, so with that brief history and time there.
All right.
What I'd like us as a board members to do here is basically go through, review his transcripts, and compare those to the categories A, B, and C, try and quantify which courses he's taken that qualify under which of the categories, and then if we find a deficiency, where that deficiency is, and then if we can try to assist the applicant in guiding him towards the corrected courses that he needs in order to qualify. So give us a little bit of time here, and I'd appreciate a little patience.
or they could go down here.
Right. A higher list can,
A higher list can
go down, but
Yeah, can't go
a
up.
lower list can't go up. Just my list.
It's down here. Okay, I think we've had an opportunity. Roxanne, are we good over there?
Yes, we are good.
All right, nice. We did get an opportunity to review the coursework, transcripts, and compare those to the courses that we have listed based on the categories of 1, 2, and 3. And the number breakdown that we came up with, we found that we believe that he is deficient in the Category 1 courses.
List 1.
List one. List 1. Let's just say list 1.
Right.
List 1, which requires 18 in total of his 24, but 18 from list 1. And we find that he currently qualifies for 6 of those required 18. So we're saying he's deficient by 12 semester hours.
What 6 did you have?
Category 1 courses.
The geodetic design and the boundary. It was geodetic. Or maybe it might have been geometric.
Geometric design and which other one?
The title in total was Geometric Design and Operation of Roadways, I think is what it stands for. Has some abbreviations in there. It was a 531 course number from University of Kentucky. And then the other one I think we considered that qualified for list 1 was a Boundary Location Principles. And it was a course 517. Obviously, both of those being upper level.
Let me ask you.
Sure.
Becky, could I get you to lower your,
Sorry,
we've got
I'm
to be
sorry.
on the record. Thank you.
It's a level 331 transportation engineering. I think would be under consideration. And the other one that I thought possibly would be, he had a couple of different courses that are the one.
Jackie, on list 2, it clearly states transportation/highway engineering is a part of list 2.
I mean, on list 1, there's not a,
Road design route survey.
Which I think is where we went with the first one.
Yeah.
With his geometric design, I think we
Right.
applied that one to there.
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
Again, I'm just throwing out ones
Yeah.
that I thought that
Absolutely.
might,
Yeah.
and then another, there was a level, there was actually a couple of them, I didn't get the other one down, a couple of 400 courses in construction methodology and that, and then a 300 intro to construction engineering. Now, again,
Yeah, list 2 again says engineering and construction surveys and construction surveys. So primarily, list 2 has embraced construction as opposed to list 1.
So I think after review, we found that he did have 6 semester hours that qualified, leaving him approximately 12 semester hours short. And I would like to make a recommendation to him on how to most efficiently gain approval for his application. And I believe it would be if he were to take 4 additional courses totaling 12 semester hours under the list 1 category. And I want to make sure that he has a copy of that list 1. And what I would ask him to do, if he chooses to go that route, is to, before he signs up, pays tuition, et cetera, contact the board and say, look, I'm considering taking this course at this location. Does it qualify for list 1 that he's in need? And allow the board to respond to that, hopefully in a very quick and efficient manner, so that he doesn't take a course and then submit it and find out that it doesn't qualify. That's just not right. We don't want that. We want him approved and we want to get him in there. So I'm guessing, just top of my head, 12 semester hours could approximately be taken in a year. Obviously it's up to him at the rate he wants to take, but I think that's somewhat reasonable if he's trying to get it, as expeditiously as he can, which I think would be quicker than the other route, which would have been the 10 years of experience. I think that would have been an additional, 4 or 5 years of experience he would. So it's strictly up to him and his time frame and how he wants to go about it. But But obviously, I want to make contact with him, let him know that this is what we found. He currently has 6, is lacking 12 from list 1. If he chooses to go that route, we'd be glad to, approve that course before he takes it, I would hope.
I can get that to any of you to approve, as long as one person
Absolutely.
approves it once he's decided.
Absolutely.
Communicate with him, if not today, by tomorrow, just to bring him in the loop, and then we'll put something in writing in his file.
Yeah, and then also if we could include that list of the courses that is
Oh, we
available on the
will.
website.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
and
we'll
you
find
know,
it.
so he is fully aware of what it is we're talking about, so. Okay. Hopefully that addresses,
And that is it, right? He met Lister category 2 and 3.
2 and 3,
that
he was
would be
fine.
it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What
2 and 3
about,
was
I
fine.
think one of the forms from one of the board members said that the description, the legal description and the plat wasn't quite finished. Does he need to fix those as well, or are they on here and okay?
I don't know that he.
He hasn't provided
Is there something
anything
new
else.
here?
No.
If he's not provided anything new, then my comments
Give
will
him
stand.
back the comments? Okay.
My comments will stand if nothing
Okay.
new's been provided.
Okay.
okay. I think that addresses him. We're square there, okay. All right, anything else we need to address before we get to the director's report? Not hear anything? Okay. Roxana, are you prepared and ready for that
Yes.
director's report?
Absolutely,
As
thank you.
always, thank you.
We are on page 98 with the director's report. Give me a minute. Our review of revenue received as well as expenses. We should be closing the fiscal year sometime, maybe in the next month and a half to 2. So for the next meeting, you'll have the closing of this year, which will be good. You can tell the months that we have gone into a deficit is due to the cost back reallocations, which have, happened before June, so everything can get done. So again, all in all, I think we're okay, but, considering that we don't get the big renewal money for almost a year and a half from now, we are going to have to probably be really prudent with our expenses. Not that we ever aren't, but that's one of the reasons today when we discuss moving things around. A change in our expenses is the way legal is being billed to each program. When an attorney travels for the program, that means that program is picking up every single one of those hours. So many programs are being advised, obviously take your attorney when it's important, but that means like our Arizona trip, we've got Tuesday through Friday, 7.5-hour days.
I'll bring you pictures, Sarah.
I'll send you a postcard.
Just things to think about, because those things kind of add up, and just all responsible decisions that we're making with the money.
That's also why we hit on the expert reviewers earlier, just because
I noticed.
this is a program that doesn't have a steady stream of income, unlike some others where there's constant renewals and constant, new applicants. So Roxanne and I
Brings
will
up
be
that
much
argument
more-
again.
Well, let me ask this question. Are you at liberty to divulge to the board what an average case reviewer case cost? If you're not, I understand.
I don't see
No,
those
you don't.
invoices, so.
It varies based on the number of hours. A lot of the reviews are per hour, so 200 to 500 hours. But if the report or they have to follow up with things, it could be $1,000, depending on the contract. Some of the contracts are per hour, others are by report. So,
Fair enough.
And do we still have a staff of 3 reviewers?
I think so. I don't think we've lost anyone for land surveyors.
I'll email Carol really quick. I have 3 boards with expert reviewers, so I'm sitting here. Roxanne and I have been
Oh, mine.
reviewing contracts for
I know
appraisers
earlier-
recently, so.
Earlier in the year, I think there was.
I think there was an
went
RFP
out.
that went out for this
Yeah.
board. But I will tell you, like with our other programs, as we've seen recently, one reviewer may charge $200 an hour. We've had another one recently that charged $1,300 an hour. So we're also very picky in our selection on who we decide to send a review to. If we think it's going to be super complicated, you don't obviously want to send it to someone that is going to use their complete $10,000 contract on one review. So.
And that's where also, as you see the legal report and however the litigating attorney presented it, the information about the review, we're good with your comments on that. If you think this is a great review, we will be the only ones knowing, okay, it's also 3 times the money, but that when we know a complicated case is here or something in particular, we can keep that in mind. Sometimes the reviews, I don't think it's happened with this program, aren't that great. So we may have to send it for a second one. We keep that in mind as well, because then that's obviously more funds to the board. We'd rather just do it once.
And on that note, we would tell you, please tell us if we do present something from an expert, whether you think it's good information or bad. But be nice to your reviewers, because what we found out from recent meetings, and you can talk to Mr. Thomas about this, is that the reviewers do watch the meetings and live stream them, and they don't always appreciate being dogged on the record.
Well,
Well, they are anonymous.
And the problem there simply lies that the record may be the only way we're able to communicate with them, unless you all actually communicate with them. And
Yeah, we
we
do
have
directly.
in the past clearly had issues with the reviews we've got back from some of the reviewers.
Yeah, and we do
Well,
keep
a lot of that, I think, some of that, one case I'm thinking about in particular, stemmed from audit, and it wasn't you guys, the right information.
Yeah, and we've seen that. But yeah, we try to keep a very open line of communication with our experts. Carol talks to all of them.
Because I tell you, the way the contract or the requirements were constructed for the case reviewer, it was quite difficult to fit into the domain that they asked us to fit into, to try to explain to the case reviewer what we're really looking for, what we sort of expect. And we knew that was going to have to kind of grow its way through things. There's going to be some growing pains with it. Clearly, I still feel like that I can tell which reviewer does which. By just their flavor of response.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Any questions regarding finances, the books? So as soon as we close the fiscal year, I think we'll have a good comparison year to year. Where are we? Our licensee counts are down a little bit, but nothing, drastic. But they're down a little bit.
Bottom line is, we're okay right now.
We're okay right now.
Right now.
I think if we stay in the way we have, we could be have less money by the time we go to renew. So we just really need to kind of.
And I promise during breaks when I'm working on other programs, I'll bill them instead of you guys when we're in Arizona.
You can't ask for a more ethical attorney when it comes to her time.
Roxanne and I are very efficient when it comes to
yeah.
conferences. Any downtime we have, you'll see us both on our laptops or.
You can forward me your pictures then from Arizona when you get there.
Yeah, we'll just
See
send
that?
them to you.
So that's our budget. I will, the next thing on our agenda to kind of stick to the agenda is the NCWS annual meeting. We've sort of touched on it. Both Sarah and I are going. I'm going to be a little bit split with the architect and engineer piece and with ours. So we've, in the last.
Split your time.
Yeah, I'm going to split my time. Now.
I will not be divided. I will be.
She will
you
not. She's all yours.
All right.
But yeah, so we'll be together, which is what we've done in the past, and that works out really well. They're sending 3 board members as well, and an attorney, so I don't have anything else on the meeting. I think you did, Chairman
On
McCarty.
the meeting itself, not that I know. I hope that everybody's had their travel arrangements taken care of through NCWS. Do y'all do your arrangements through them as well?
We do ours through the state.
Okay.
So we
Okay.
fly out on Tuesday morning.
Okay, all right. I know ours are done through NCWS. I'm pretty sure we're all taken care of there. So as best I know, we're good there.
The nomination was the only other thing.
I do, yeah, that's a good point. I did want to bring up one thing. Tim is looking for a nomination from our board. He's seeking the Southern Zone Vice President position. And I think it's imperative that we as a board nominate him to show our support, obviously, behind him in his endeavors, and I certainly do support him by that. So,
Do we need to take action on that?
well, I think we just need to show from the board that we're in approval, and we do support him in his nomination for that position. Is there anything else that you need administratively?
Well, Ms. Roxanna will send a letter to the
letter, I'll say,
nominating
does that have to be
nominating
submitted
committee. That's the
prior?
formal thing, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've got the letter, we did it the last time,
Yeah.
and
I
it
think
is,
I
it's,
recall, yeah.
I think, a great privilege to have him represent
Oh, yes,
Tennessee.
definitely.
So I'm.
Very much so.
I thank you and very excited.
Maybe make it official. Somebody motion second.
All right.
I move that we nominate Tim Lingerfeld for the Southern Zone
Excellent.
in
I
the
will-
upcoming NCAAS election.
Excellent. Second that. And all in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed?
And
All right.
I will clarify that election will be in Boise, Idaho in May of next year.
I will work on that letter. If not this week, then
I'll get
definitely
you the
next and get it
information.
out if you send me the information. Thank you. That sounds wonderful.
Good.
The next item we have, and I emailed this to all of our board members, this is your 2019 board meeting dates. You've got 4 meetings scheduled, January 24th for 2019, April 25th, July 25th, and October 24th. They're all on a Thursday to stay consistent. I am pretty sure that by statute, we need to have 4, so these are the 4 meetings that we need to have. Many programs that had more than their statute required are cutting back to those numbers. Sometimes board business almost dictates that you have more, but the expense to have board members come in,
There was a
Your
time.
time
There was a time not long
spent.
ago we had more than 4, and lasted 2 days apiece, and quite a bit. So yeah, we as collectively as a board, just over the last couple of years, have definitely consolidated and shorted up quite a bit. So that's great. Are these dates consistent with the calendar year this
pretty
year?
much,
the
yes,
same way? I thought
exactly,
so.
that third Thursday,
That's
yes.
what I thought. Yep.
And we reserve the room, so if it's okay, I wanted to make sure everybody had it on their calendars. I can email it to you again, but it went out before we did the meeting. So that is
We're good.
our 2019. The other items, several of them aren't on your iPads, but I wanted to update. We were going to do the election of officers for 2019.
Right.
Is this a good time, or you?
Now's perfect.
Good.
Now's
Okay.
perfect.
I did
guess-
want to mention, Mr. Chair, on the dates.
Yes.
There is a President's Assembly and an MBA Assembly in February for NCAAS. The Southern Zone is in May for NCAAS, and then the annual is in August.
All right, with that, let's go ahead and take care of those elections of officers for 2019. I guess we need to elect a chairman and a vice chairman, is that right?
That is correct.
Excellent. All right. I'd like to nominate Tim Lingerfeld for chairman.
Second.
And we have a second on that. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Crickets. All right, so that is approved. And for vice chairman,
I'd like to nominate Jackie Dillahay.
excellent. All right, so we have a nomination for vice chairman, Jackie Dillahay. Any other nominations? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so congratulations to both of y'all for next year. Very nice.
Thank you, very nice.
All right.
We will let our new board member know this took place. I'm sure he will have no problem.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can't nominate him because he,
That'd be a little difficult.
This is great.
Although usually the one that's absent is the one that gets.
That's
Not
right.
in this
We'll give him some slack since it's.
yeah.
Or we could tease him and say,
Circumstance.
by the way.
By the way,
That sounds
you
great.
got a lot of reading to do.
And
between
Roxanne
now
and I just checked. You all technically only have to meet once a year. So if you ever wanted to go down, you only have that requirement.
So I was completely wrong. Okay.
It's like all of
Like
our-
what she thought though before.
The exam plats for our applicants that Jay worked very, very, very hard on and got to a good place, and then we updated it. They've been blessed by legal. They were posted on the website maybe 6 weeks ago, something along those lines, maybe a month ago.
Well, they were posted, and then we had to take them down. I was in a management meeting for legal, and it wasn't passed through the chain that when you put something on the website that it does have to go through our publication process because it's technically a publication. So what we did is we took it down immediately. Unbeknownst to Roxanne and I, when we put it up, we had no idea, and neither did my supervisor. And so everybody was kind of like,
What?
But so once you all look at the GPS and you bless that, it's with Carter Lawrence right now, and then we'll put those together and send them up to General Counsel and let her decide to publication's okay. And then the fact that it's been approved by this many people and gone through legal, it shouldn't be an issue to get it blessed. But
I
then
didn't
it'll.
think it was that complicated, but
Apparently that down, Sarah said.
Sarah said.
Sometimes it's much more complicated than
Okay.
we like.
So as Sarah mentioned, the GPS piece, I emailed all of you, I think, a couple of weeks ago with the final version. It's what's on your iPads. It's the last document, I believe.
Good.
And it says that we're discussing it on the 26th. That's moving on, and it has gone through legal. So it's with the Assistant Commissioner. He'll finalize any changes, ask us questions. If we need to go back and forth with you all, we will. And otherwise, once it's blessed, we will update the website. And what I may then do is just send everyone a link, just a quick link to where exactly on the webpage it is, so that if applicants ask you or you're at a TAPS meeting, you can say in this section, because sometimes there's just a lot of clicking to find things. So. Not at all, not at all, because you all had voted and then you finished it not too long ago. The website update, and this is on me and just us being short-staffed. When you look at the 14 programs that I had, probably we're down half of our staff, and still are. So it's been an interesting challenge. The great news is we've got 5 people we've hired. They'll be starting on helping. Jamie has absolutely stepped up to the plate. She has taken on 2 more professions on top of what she was already doing. So it has been, you have to figure out which hat to put on. We will get to a much better place, but consequently, and the fact that we don't update the website ourselves, it has to be done. I haven't put anything else out for the renewal for 2019 because it hasn't been that biggest fire we've had to put out. But our goal is to have something in language already to start, besides feeding it through any outreach you all can do, we can do through TAPS, just letting people know. Again, your continuing education is up to you. Hold on to it for the 2019 renewal. Don't start worrying about submitting it in. It is on you. And in 2019, we're planning to really audit, which means you're just going to vouch and say, I attest to the fact that I've done my PDHs. They're done, but you don't have to even submit them. That way, if you're audited, that's when you let us know, here they are. Here's what I did. That in itself is actually going to expedite the renewal by down to hours, as opposed to what was weeks and months in 2015 and days in 2017. It will be if these things have been met and the professional attested to the fact that they did it, it's out the door. Because if we audit them and they didn't, saying I didn't read it or didn't know isn't quite good enough. That's an open complaint. So many professions are kind of in that boat. Yeah.
Hey, one question about that.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong,
Sure.
and I'm sure that I am. We were to discuss the window of time for audit, and we were to discuss the percentage of audit, and we were to discuss the how you fix it if you're in violation. We were to discuss that, and we never really have. I mean, obviously, it's not December 31st, 2019, right. But I don't want to get that left out in the process, because we were to discuss that at some point in time.
And we can discuss and finalize it now. We can wait until a year prior. It's completely at your discretion. That is not at all a problem. Once we're ready to post it online, it would be good to kind of post it all. Say this is how the audit's going to work.
It's my notion, in the spirit of the adventure we went through this morning with 2015ers, that we would wait to probably January and put that on the January meeting agenda. Mm-hmm. That way we've kind of got these other albatrosses sort of behind us, and the rules of the road are now a little clearer and straightforward. I don't know what the other members think of that, but that's kind of my notion. And then that way I think that would allow for ample time to, if you want to put something on the website or whatever, however the staff needs to handle that, I think that would give us plenty of time to notify, and it would also allow us to have that decision made prior to the TAPS meeting in March. And then if we have a board session, as we did last year, we can address that. Or if we are just simply there, we can address it, because, we are able to hit a large audience at that particular time.
Yeah, I think it's important that we get that prepared and have those items worked out prior to that TAPS conference, because that's our biggest draw, that's our biggest audience, and it directly affects them. So we need to have that decision made prior to that meeting and be able to distribute that kind of information.
I think we need to do it in October. We'll do it in October.
No, I've got it in the January meeting. I think that's a good time frame if that works for the board. We start the year with that.
I just really want to clean this other stuff up.
Yeah.
In regards to getting those specifics that we're talking about, those numbers, those dates, those percentages, things like that, can we contact other state boards that have these already in place? I mean, the majority of states have this
just for surveying.
Just for surveying, yeah. I'm talking about surveying only. I'd like to know how they handle it, kind of get a feel for their percentages, their numbers. if.
I mean, because we have other internal boards too that we can talk to
Certainly, yeah.
as
yeah.
well. Because
I'd like to be consistent with other states and kind of get a feel for where their numbers are, where they range, where their audit percentages are, so that we're in somewhat of an agreement with them.
And our annual meeting, NCWS meeting, will help us with that too.
True.
Because we know a lot of the.
I think that's a great idea. Internally, most of our programs now have gone to this audit.
I would think so, yeah.
Just
That
less
makes sense.
things you have to touch and see and hold and
Well,
look at.
and these other boards that have done it will also give us some insight into some of their pitfalls, or, maybe they did it one way and they needed to change because, or whatever. It'd help us a little bit too, I think. Because, potentially you could choose a low percentage of audit, and a registrant could draw the lucky number and not be audited for 5 or 6 renewal cycles.
What other programs do is we pick on either by the year you got a license, which wouldn't work here because they're all at the same time, or your license number. If it's an even number, that's all we're auditing, is the even number people, and then the next round we audit the odd number. So that then means you're down to hopefully half, if you think about it, and you've got more of a chance of being pulled into that audit. And then it's 5 to 10%, whatever that perfect number may be. It's not more than 10, but probably never less, than the 5%.
It's like the IRS. Some people don't pay their taxes ever, and they don't get audited.
It's the same kind of thing, but you're attesting that you did it right.
I understand. No,
They'll probably note your name down. They're probably watching it.
We're watching Jackie.
We're gonna check that guy out.
Pull that file.
We're gonna check him out.
Okay, so the next item we were going to touch on is the PSI exams. We are still in the process of completing our additional questions that the subject matters have been working on. We have extended that website for the questions to be added to. It's an electronic process to August the 1st. So hopefully by August the 1st, PSI will be able to share what we've got, make sure that that's enough volume, kind of put them back into the pool. We've got, and I'll just piggyback on that regarding our applicant reviews. So we have no applicant reviews before you. We have 20 in the pipeline. So those are the number of applicants that's a decent number. It's higher than I'd like in the pipeline, but I think some of that is many of them are missing pieces. So Janie, again, and all the other wonderful things she does, it's that constant follow-up. Okay, now I've got the description, but only one plat, not the 2. Or you forgot to complete the application, or, this last page is left blank. So it's a lot of those follow-ups that we're still going back and forth with. But it'll be great if these 20, or a good number of the 20, start going to you all for approval, and then these questions are going to roll out as quickly as PSI can roll them out.
What is the current exam statistics?
That's a good question. I haven't run it since our last one. I really just didn't get a chance to. I was focusing on who's in the pipeline and working with PSI regarding the questions and the database, because we just haven't finished it.
Pipeline is that our plat still ain't out there, and we're still going to be having the same comments again.
Yeah. And we talked about it. I don't know that the plat's going to be out there with this round of subject matter experts. So they'll, they've taken the fundamentals. They'll take this other one, and hopefully all the experience and education they did will help us get some good surveyors out there.
I check daily the numbers to see who's passed and everything. There's probably only maybe 3 or 4 that haven't taken it yet. They've registered, but they can register a couple of months in advance or 6 months in advance. They want to take it, but as soon as I send their names in, they're generally going right in and picking. So there's not a lot that are waiting to take it. A lot of them have taken it and gotten licensed since December, since we went that route. So.
That is all I have. I'm going to turn it, I think, back, unless anybody else has something that I've missed, for the new business discussion regarding advertisement.
Was this was an item I think Tim had brought to our attention regarding a lot of the latest services that people are offering out there with their UAVs or drones, so to speak. And one of the features that I'll call them drones for discussion, allows you to do is using the photographs that are produced from the cameras on the drones that are flying, that they can process those photos, stitch them together, and create maps. However, some people refer to them as creating surveys. And so many of these people that have opened their own business, started a drone flying business, whether it's for real estate or photography or for whatever idea, but a lot of them are advertising. And I have to believe, unknowingly, are advertising surveying services using their drones. And they use surveying, I think, more as a generic word because it's kind of part of the lingo of one of the products that you can produce from the photographs from the drone. And so I have to believe that they just unknowingly are advertising the service of surveying on their websites, not knowing that it is a regulated profession and that just the mere offering of surveying is, obviously you have to hold a license in order to do that. And so there's many examples of brand new websites that are out there offering these drone services, and they'll list the surveying services. So I kind of wanted to get a feel for from the board, what steps can we take in terms of trying to kind of get them more in line with the correct path here, in terms of anywhere from just just FYI, letting you know, heads up here, what you're offering, you can't be doing that. All the way down to if it really is, offering the professional service of surveying with an unlicensed professional in the business. So I kind of wanted to just kind of touch base with the staff here and see what steps can we take in terms of, and really my intention is to educate the public, so to speak, because this is somewhat of a new business realm that people are getting into. It's a new little niche. And so there's a lot of services that they are offering, completely honest, thinking that they're just using the lingo and that's what the product is called, surveying, not understanding or not knowing that it is a regulated profession. They just don't know. I'm trying to make the positive here. And so it's my intention to basically clarify with the staff here in what is the route that we can take in order to best advise them that you really can't be doing that. But I don't want to make anything formal or come down with a heavy hammer unless that's warranted. And honestly, I don't think it is. But I'd like to be able to advise them, but I don't want to overstep my bounds.
And I think that's probably the best way to do it, is if you're talking to someone that is doing this, is to let them know, hey, it looks like you're offering surveying services. That's a licensed profession. Someone could file a complaint on you at some point to say, and that's our biggest, and that's, I get a lot of angry phone calls from people, specifically auctioneers. You're not policing, and that's not my job.
That's right.
My job is for, if you see something or you've been wronged, for you to report it to me, and then I can look into it. Unfortunately, our normal routes of the e-notify system wouldn't work in this matter because those people aren't signed up for e-notifications. So even if we did something or put something on our website, they're not going to look at it because they're not surveyors, or they don't think they're surveying. So I hate to say, but like word of mouth, any outreaches you're at, just that's probably the best way. I mean, I don't think that we've had any phone calls in the pipeline about it. Typically, that's how we hear of something from the beginning, as an advertisement. They're my favorite from auctioneers. They'll just cut and paste an advertisement, and that's the complaint. They don't tell me what I'm supposed to look for. But, I haven't seen any of that. So
what about you? I mean, because if this is something new that you're seeing and it kind of comes with the drone or the software that can be used, what about reaching out to the software and saying, this is great for John Smith, who owns a house and wants to survey his lot, but if someone is charging for these services, thinking of filing some type of a report, did you know this is a regulated and
that is certainly an idea, and a good one at that. I don't know that it's the software manufacturer's job to tell the user how to use their product in terms of what service they're offering from it. Rather, I think it's more on the end user in terms of advertising what he's producing from it, that they're the ones that need to be educated differently. So I guess what I'm hearing from you is that in terms of a casual contact to the business owner, if one were to be made, it has to be made from Jay Kaufman, not from Jay Kaufman, Board of Examiners.
Right.
Okay, so there is no real formal correspondence, educational type thing from the board to them. Rather, it has to come from Joe Blow
I don't
citizen.
even know how we would
I wouldn't either.
go about, like, you look up every website in Tennessee that someone's using a drone, and
I
then
think as a board, the only way we can react is if a complaint's filed.
Yeah,
Formally,
I
think
mean,
it is.
you've said it on the record now. Anybody that's maybe listening can pass that on to someone that they know is doing it. You all, as individuals, are more than welcome to let people know, hey, you have to be licensed to do what you're claiming to do, or maybe you should remove that from your advertisement, and just say, you take photos or you do whatever. But as a board, I don't think there's truly anything that we can do until a complaint comes in.
Educational outreach letter, it's more of a formal aspect of it.
We'd be reaching,
Understand.
going to TAPS, those that are probably going to think along the same lines as you do, not the person that's buying the software to do it themselves and be an entrepreneur and create this new plan because they've got a great-looking drone.
Like Tim probably has something to say on this. He's being awful quiet during this conversation.
Don't hear that often, do you?
That one much. I brought the subject up, and I just wanted to listen to see what you had to say. I kind of knew the direction that you were going to go in. I will say that I am familiar with some other boards that are surveying boards that opposite route. And when I say the opposite route, I mean they choose the aggressive route. That if it's brought to their attention, then they get after them. And what I've seen is they basically send them a letter and said, what we see or what we read on your website, etc., appears that you may be offering a service that falls under rule number 62-18- and you need to be mindful, and we're including this rule for your edification. And I've seen them do that, and then if whoever it's sent to doesn't buy it, then they do whatever they got to do. But I have seen that action from some other boards. So,
I mean, I would tell you, if I were to start getting phone calls in my office, tomorrow and get 5 or 6 this week, this one company is doing this, they're advertising this way. That may be a time where Roxanne and I go to the assistant commissioner and say, hey, look, this was a concern of the board. Can we send this individual a letter? But I mean, I think that we would have to get, 5 or 6 phone calls on one person before they would want us to go out and.
Overall, I think what I heard you say, Ms. Sarah, is that, again, this is probably good topic food for TAPS. And, say, hey, look, we know you guys are using them, but you're doing it legally. But we know other people are using them, and if they are, we need to be telling them. And if that doesn't work, we need to file a complaint.
Yep. And I told an individual that on the phone yesterday. I said, I'm not in your area of the state. I'm not going around, driving around, looking for unlicensed activity. I rely on the public to send that to me, and then I can send out an investigator or whatever needs to be done.
I'll give you an example. In the state of Kentucky, which we're not in, but they have investigators for their surveying board. And if a complaint is filed on a surveyor, that investigator goes and investigates, okay? Well, while that investigator is there, they go to the local courthouse of the county that surveyor is in, and they thumb through the plats to see the last few plats that particular surveyor they're investigating has prepared. If while turning through the plats, they find something that doesn't meet their standards of practice for the map, they pull it out, they copy it, they send it in to file a board complaint while they're there investigating somebody else. So that's kind of their method of operation. I'm not saying that should be Tennessee's.
Right.
I'm just simply saying I know that's what they do.
Well, and I mean, we have investigators at our disposal as well that we can send out and, do what needs to be done. But obviously, we don't want to send them out on this matter and say, hey, go look through all these websites or do this and do that. Because, I mean, as you saw from our budget, investigator costs start adding up, and so we just rely on, the public to let us know.
I think where it's different, though, our investigators cover many boards.
Correct.
Where in Kentucky, of course, it's an engineer surveyors board that's combined.
That's the
Right.
difference.
They have a dedicated
That's right.
investigator
That's the difference.
specific to that board.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we have some programs within the building that have their own investigators as well.
Does engineering and architecture have theirs?
They do not.
They do not?
And we get, the complaints from the public. Again, the question with the complaint is, it needs to come in if it's about protecting the public. If it is about protecting the licensees and their business model and the money they're making, that's not what we're going out to do. Yeah.
It covers that. Did we say there were no applications to review?
That's correct.
Is that right?
None.
Jamie, how is the whole process of getting us on board and getting responses back? Is it working?
It's working.
It's working?
Takes a little time sometimes.
It does sometimes, I agree.
And our passwords changed and had a
Yeah, that's a whole other
had
challenge.
a hiccup for the last 2 or 3 weeks, and
Right.
we had to all be re-established back into that system. Even it knocked me out completely. So, but we do have that back up, and I've emailed you your temporaries, and they're telling me that this new system, we don't have to contact them. Now we can change our own passwords when it asks us to do that. And it was doing that for a short period of time, and then it just crashed and wouldn't let me do that. So they had to reset all 4 of us back up there, or 5 of us back up again.
Okay, I think that covers everything that's on the printed agenda. Is there any other items anybody else needs to address here? All right, we do have a couple of certificates we still need to sign, so nobody go anywhere yet. Unless there's other items. Galen, did you want to say anything? You're good? All right, we do appreciate that letter you wrote us. It was special. Thank you very much. That was very
Thank you. Beautiful letter,
Very
yes.
kind of you. We do miss having you up here. I know that. We do. Okay, if there's no other business, then I'll make a motion we adjourn.
Well, before you adjourn, we need to do the PDHs.
Oh, you're right. The PDA. I always forget that's the last thing. Last thing.
Motion for 3 PDHs today.
1 minus 1
Like
make
it's
3.
right,
3
yeah.
hours.
Yeah.
All right. Motion made.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Now we may adjourn.
Now we may adjourn. All right. Thank you.
Jackie, question. How is the most direct route to get to 65 from here? I've got to pick up B. She's